Shut up, phone.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
And we are live. Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia live stream, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinthemorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
You know, I do want to say I am thankful this Thanksgiving for Russ, the producer, being on time for the first time in the history of radio broadcasting. What's it called, Liberty Lee?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
And the other half of the Justice Brothers, Richard Roberts, what's it called?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who'll listen to check us out at MikeGinthemorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your morning with Scott Adams coming at you with the Scott Adams Show, weekdays at 9 a.m. We've got an excellent program brought to you by the one and only Rick Crump, who joined us on this program just last week. Kinetic Faith, preaching values, service, and order. We've got Dan the Man Bongino, bring you the Dan Bongino Show, weekdays at noon. We've got Ben Shapiro, bring you the Ben Shapiro Show, weekdays at 3 p.m. And finally, we want to welcome him to the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show, weekdays at 5 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Look at Russ go. Can anybody believe this right now? Russ is absolutely on fire. Rich, I know you played NBA Jam as a kid. Remember that basketball game where they had 2-on-2? And then he's heating up. He's on fire. Russ is on fire tonight, isn't he?
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Who are you and what have you done with Russ, the producer? Whoever's behind the board over there right now.
He hasn't had his turkey yet, Mike. That's what's going on.
This is incredible. This is incredible. What? You know what? We're just going to call it a night. That's it. That's all we got for the show.
You're going to be worried. People are going to sign in in a little while and go, well, they've been on the air already for 20 minutes. What's going on?
Right on. Right on.
That's right. Well, they usually don't start for a little bit here. But we've got an excellent program in store for everybody. Obviously had a little bit of a hiccup. Tried our best to get on the air Saturday evening with Richard Roberts, Justice Brother himself, and didn't work out. We still don't know the reason why that stream was not able to take place. Communications with the internet service provider indicated that our internet was, in fact, at full strength. So it still remains a mystery. I'm not throwing out any accusations. I'm not going to throw
I'll
out
throw
any
out accusations.
That wouldn't be right. That wouldn't be right. But what I can say is that we appreciate everybody who stuck in there with us and checked out the live stream that we did later on that evening. The cigar live stream, we're going to have to do that more often. Maybe Rich can join us for one of those.
Heck yeah.
But today, we want to get to the heart of the matter here. A very high-profile self-defense case took place in this country last week. the Kyle Rittenhouse case. We're going to go through the clips. Now, Rich, I just wanted to start off before we go through these clips. Is there anything from the outset that you think gun owners need to know from this case before we start getting into the footage and some of the cross-examination and things of that nature?
Well, what I think is important for gun owners to realize is that I think it's important, especially our gun owners that we represent in Pennsylvania, and I say this all the time, self-defense is a defense at trial. And even when we look at a situation, it looks pretty clear to us that this is a pretty good self-defense case, maybe even a clear-cut, I don't know why you charged him self-defense case. It's still a case that has a defense at trial. And you use self-defense, you're forced to use self-defense, in this case, in Mr. Rittenhouse's case, defend himself or a loved one. There is a possibility that you will be sitting in front of a jury of 12 people and they will decide your fate. No matter how clear-cut, how maybe in the gray area it could be, you could certainly find yourself. I also think it's important now that I've been a few days removed from this. There was another verdict today on a self-defense case where video plays an important role, and you absolutely can't believe that in your particular instance, there's going to be a dozen bystanders, drone footage, ring footage that captures this incident. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are good about this case, and there's a lot of things you can learn, and there's frankly a lot of things that are very unique at this case. No, Mike and I have done quite a few self-defense cases, and I can't tell you a single one where I had footage.
That right, or if there's anything, not that much. I had one where there was a self-defense incident, and you could see everything leading up to it. It was from the inside of a diner, and then the very important part, there was like this heart sticker because it was around Valentine's Day that was on the window. It was pressed onto the window, and the heart sticker just covered up all the important part. You couldn't see anything that actually took place. You could see leading up to it. You could see some stuff afterwards. Unfortunately, that heart sticker acted as the censor. Now, you did say there was another self-defense case. They raised self-defense. All right, they raised self-defense. That it was not successful. That was a guilty verdict, correct?
Yes, it was a guilty verdict on all three of the individuals involved in that case. And I think it's important. I think there was a lot of, and maybe it's getting deep into the weeds. I think people after the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict said this will be the bane and vigilante justice will run rampant throughout the United States. And literally less than a week later, same situation. They raised self-defense. There's a video in that case. And the jury, looking at that case, and I think was the correct verdict in that case as well, went, no, that's not self-defense. You guys are actually vigilantes, and this is homicide.
Right. That's right. You guys are out of line. So it kind of puts the fire out for a lot of these politicians who went out there and paid all this lip service to their base when they really had no idea what they were talking about. And they misled a lot of people. If people were not following this very closely and they just watched what, let's say, Bill de Blasio had to say about it on Twitter, they would get a wildly, wildly inaccurate depiction of what happened. I think that the most important thing from my perspective that people need to understand, and excellent points that you raised, is that in these cases, there are no winners. There are no winners in these cases. Perhaps you leave alive, which is obviously better than the alternative. But the best gunfight truly is the one that doesn't happen. So with that being said, I want to start out by taking a look at some of the footage over here. We are getting lit up on the comments over here. Before we get to that footage, let me just say, everybody saying happy Thanksgiving. I want to wish a happy Thanksgiving to Gary, to Jeremy, to Rita. To Durso, happy Thanksgiving. Stacks Farm said happy Thanksgiving. Randy, happy Thanksgiving. DG, happy Thanksgiving. And also reminded me that it is a day removed from the other half of the Justice Brothers' birthday. Happy birthday, Richard Sherwood Roberts Jr. Esquire. Everybody wish him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Richard. All right, let's check out the first clip. Let's go ahead and check this out, Russ.
Give me a sec. Hang on.
No? Sure. Yeah, we're going to start out by looking at some of the footage of the incident in itself, and then we will go ahead and take a look at some of the the court footage, some of the cross-examination questions from the prosecutor. And before we look at the prosecution footage, Rich, you and I will maybe throw out a couple of comments about what we thought about his performance and some of the things that took place during the proceedings themselves. You are right that there was a tremendous amount of footage considering, and there was even an argument at one point about the footage being turned over in the correct format. Did you see anything about that, Rich?
I did see that. The defense attorney made an objection to one of the videos. The copy of the footage that they got was a compressed and, according to them, a lower quality format than the one the prosecution presented at trial. So they objected that they had not an opportunity to view the full, decompressed footage of the incident. So they tried to object to its inclusion. The judge, I believe, overruled that and let them play the footage at that point. That also came up again when the jury asked a question to watch several of the videos again during their one of 5 days of deliberations. So that was something that they didn't want them to watch it again, because then the judge was like, well, I think the crime for the judge is like, well, they want to see the video. We're going to show them the video. I don't know. Yeah, they've already saw it. They want to see it again. And then it was interesting to see both sides argue. And I thought the judge did a good job about how many times can they watch a video? Can they have control over the video? Because they wanted to zoom in, obviously, at certain points to get a closer look at certain incidents. And the judge, I think, rightfully so. And there's objections both sides. Like, they can do whatever they want. I don't know what the problem is here. They want to look at the video that's obviously pretty critical. We're just going to let them watch the video.
I think the video in this case was the entire defense. Because it captured everything.
Speaking of video, Russ, of course, the minute we compliment him, we want to see the clip
hush!
One.
I was ready. I was waiting for you to call it up again. Now, I do want to preface this with this was marked as age restricted on YouTube. So,
all right, we'll give it a shot.
If we get kicked off of YouTube for having one of those 18+ videos, head on over to Twitch and join us there, I guess. That's all.
We'll be all right.
I'm going to play this now.
I have faith in you, Russ.
Do I have to play? Yes. Looks like somebody has a laser pointer there.
And that's it. Check in clip 2.
Okay, hang on. I pause this. Okay, back. Clip 2, drone footage.
He repeats, I just shot someone, over and over, and I believe at some point he did say he had to shoot someone.
7 days into the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse,
that's why you got to be careful what you say in the aftermath, right, Rich?
Presenting its case.
Yeah.
And now
Something as simple as that.
The defense is building its case and calling its witnesses, one of which is expected to be Rittenhouse himself.
CBS 58's Adam Reif is live outside the Kenosha County Courthouse to break down today's developments. Adam.
Jessup, Natalie, good evening. There was a lot of movement in the courtroom today. A lot of witnesses testified, of course, and a lot of procedural issues were also decided. And for the first time, we saw a brand new drone video of the first shooting, giving the clearest picture yet of what happened that night.
I don't know if I'd call it
I began working on them on Sunday.
Okay. When did the crime lab receive them?
The crime lab received that as a submittal on Sunday.
New drone video introduced by the prosecution provides one of the most comprehensive views of the scene so far. It was enhanced and cropped by a technician at the state's crime lab and shows Kyle Rittenhouse running through the Car Source parking lot, chased by Joseph Rosenbaum. The crime lab slowed down this clip. It shows them running between parked cars. As Rosenbaum nearly reaches Rittenhouse, he spins and shoots. You can see the puff of smoke from the AR-15. The state played the clip several times for the jury, then called to the stand a forensic pathologist with the medical examiner's office.
This gunshot wound is a lethal injury.
Step by step, he walked through the injuries suffered by both Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber. The prosecution tried to determine how close Rosenbaum was to Rittenhouse when he shot him based on forensics and gunpowder residue on Rosenbaum's skin.
I would say that in this particular instance, we're talking about something within a few feet, within 4 feet or so.
But on cross-examination, the defense focused on the angle of the shots.
Your belief to a reasonable degree of medical certainty is that he's in a horizontal position close to my client. The bullet goes in and across and down.
That's correct.
Okay, so once again, in the position of lunging would put you in a horizontal position, correct?
It would.
When the trial resumed after the lunch break,
Your Honor, the state formally rests its case.
Okay, thank you.
The defense called its first witness.
You mean to kill it?
Yeah, you can get rid of it at this point. So, Rich, how about that? You get the footage that he said Sunday.
Well, yeah.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the heads up, right, guys? Appreciate the heads up.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it was FBI drone footage, if I'm not mistaken.
You only had how long?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting that they had drones there.
Summer of last year. It's November.
I think they're flying drones over the school board meetings now too.
Drones everywhere. Just assume
They're
that
everywhere.
you're on camera.
Yeah,
Assume that everything that you do is on camera. So I think that everybody who's watching along has seen the footage. When you see that their expert up there testifying as to how close he was and potentially the angle, would it be consistent with lunging? When you see that footage that they just showed from the drone, that's really unnecessary, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it could be. They're putting in the I don't know who it helps in that situation. I don't know why a prosecution would bring that up. The fact that Mr. Rittenhouse is running away, I think, bolsters the defense case as opposed to that. I mean, it's tough to see whether or not he's lunging, but the important part about the defense's case about lunging is because their claim was he was lunging for Mr. Rittenhouse's weapon, which is important in this particular case because out of the 3 individuals who were shot that night, the first individual is the only one who wasn't armed. So you had to make a distinction. If he's unarmed, while it's not necessary to be armed, as Mike would well understand, to use deadly force in defense of yourself, with that, you got to try to make a reason why deadly force was immediately necessary at that point under Wisconsin law. Lunging for the AR-15, trying to disarm somebody, is certainly reason to use an imminent risk of at least serious bodily harm. And we've used that in self-defense cases involving law enforcement quite often, where a suspect gets on top of them and attempts to disarm them is a justification, even though they're not armed themselves at that moment.
It is that old adage that if you're armed, every confrontation becomes an armed confrontation if somebody is able to get a hold of that weapon, right? So the footage seemed to be pretty consistent with what we saw in the court documents, which, again, if you read the affidavit, it seems pretty clear, okay, what is not justified about this? That's a difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow. Read through that and say, okay, still got to go to trial.
They got to go to trial, and I mean that's prosecutorial discretion. There is no mandate that they don't bring a case, and I think the tough thing for a lot of us who represent law-abiding gun owners is this jury deliberated for over 24 hours before reaching the verdict. So there had to be at least some disagreement in that room. I can't say how many people, but I mean they came to the right decision. But, I mean, I've been on a jury one time, and usually come in there, everybody picks a 4-person, they go, all right, what do you think? And everybody raises their hand. I don't know how they did it in this case, but usually it's like, all right, what does everybody think? Count 1, whatever the charge is. What do you think? How many people say guilty? How many people say not guilty? All right, and then usually, there's some sort of split. Half, 8-2, 11-1, whatever the case may be. But the fact that they deliberated for 24 hours, they came back in on day 3, there were some questions in that jury room. It wasn't as clear cut as, well, Mike and I both believed when we first looked at the affidavits and the arresting documents. So, I mean, just to show about that, even though that we believe it's as clear cut, you get 12 people got to agree. Thankfully, I think the jury system works and it came to the right decision, but it shows that there is, well, we can say risk in that situation. because it could easily have gone the other way, depending on the 12 people. If they're not listening, they have agendas. You try to figure that out in the jury selection process. But,
look at all these celebrities and politicians on Twitter saying that this is some kind of an outrage, and it shows how terrible the United States of America is. If any one of them were on the jury, they wouldn't have been not guilty, right?
Right. Correct.
Correct. So moving on a little bit in terms of basically what I was getting at when I was talking about their expert in connection with the footage is when you have something that shows in real time what took place, even if it is from an angle that might not be up close and personal or anything like that. There is some case law in Pennsylvania that suggests that in certain instances, an expert would not be appropriate if their testimony would tend to substitute their opinion for that of the jury. And so basically,
right.
You had I believe it was a forensic pathologist in the case I'm thinking of, who testified that it wasn't likely that the guy was shot and thrown from a moving van. And ultimately, there were eyewitnesses that testified, we saw that happen. And the appellate court said that would have been inappropriate to allow that testimony from that expert. Now, there was also an ineffective assistance claim that was upheld and went through because they didn't have some kind of a blood flow expert to talk about something else on the crime scene, but that's a different matter. So I think that would have been an interesting one based on the Pennsylvania case law. Kramer, the governor and mayor of the town should have charges brought against them. They're to blame. Jeremy says the drone footage they had a problem with was one where the prosecution claimed that Kyle pointed his rifle at Zeminski and proved provocation. Gotcha. And that's something that they talked about in the cross-examination as well. He asked him about pointing a gun at somebody else who was on the hood of an empty car. And at one point, apparently, this guy approaches Kyle again, much later on, and says, "You pointed a gun at me." And Kyle sarcastically says, "Yeah, I pointed a gun at you," and walked away as to not engage with this guy. But that was far before. So let's take a look at it. I want to talk a little bit. Rich, do you have any opening comments about the prosecution in this case, or any of the attorneys, or the judge, or anything like that before we start looking at this footage itself?
The most upsetting thing for me from the prosecutor's standpoint, thing I think that upset me the most, is the commentary on Kyle's post-arrest silence. That bothered me more than anything else, because that's literally law school, first semester, crim law. You have a right to remain silent. Anything, you don't have to talk. And the fact that he made a comment about Kyle's post-arrest silence really bothered me to my core on that situation, because I understand you got a job to do and it's a zealous prosecution. That's really the way the system's designed, the prosecutor, defense attorney. But everybody knows there's certain rules that and lines you don't cross, and that's one. And when you're dealing with a homicide case, you're not going to send a first-year prosecutor in there. That guy is an experienced prosecutor, and he should know better than that. Mm-hmm. So
no, he does. No. He does know better.
He knows, right?
He knows better than that. He does know better than that.
That's something you hear from the police.
Unfortunately, it's not only going to affect that case; it's going to affect a lot of people under a lot of circumstances. Because I run into people, as do you, in teaching U.S. Law Shield seminars, who are very concerned about exercising their Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights, saying that it's going to make them look guilty. And when you see somebody from the state up there prosecuting somebody to try to put them in jail for the rest of their life, saying, "Hey, if he would have talked, if he didn't have anything to hide, he would have talked," right?
Right.
Saying something along those lines, or commenting on his exercise of those rights. It almost affirms in the back of their mind that fear that if I don't talk, I'm going to look like I'm guilty. And you've got that famous quote, well, would you rather
look guilty at home or feel innocent in jail?
Right.
That's my question. That's fine.
And the judge definitely did hammer the prosecutor on that. Frankly, case should have been done. But let's see it.
You run at that point, though, however, with the one comment, if you declare a mistrial, I don't know if you declare a mistrial with prejudice at that point, as opposed to a curative jury instruction, because then you got to do it all over again.
Do it all over again. And maybe you don't get the right jurors that time, right?
Right. And that's always a risky situation. And I think when we were listening to commentary during the week while the trial was going on, it's a very risky proposition for a defense attorney to ask for a mistrial. Because you can ask for a mistrial with prejudice, in which they filed the motion to do so. And people asked me about that. And I said, judge isn't going to rule on that till the jury comes back. And they go, why is that? Well, because if they come to the right decision they did here, why make a ruling that the prosecutor can then appeal at some point? We'll see what the jury says. So, but to get the mistrial with prejudice, if he does that, that means you can't try it again. But that's also appealable. And an appellate court can go, yeah, you probably should have declared a mistrial, but there's not significant or serious prosecutorial conduct. So, well, we'll do it all over again.
I think it is, but that's just me.
It is, right. And then ultimately, again, well, it's not up to any of us. I don't know how many people sit on the appellate court. But
unfortunately, it's not up to the Justice Brothers.
Right.
The world would be a better place if it were up to the Justice Brothers, wouldn't it?
Next time.
Yeah.
Next
time.
time.
The Justice Brothers would be in good shape.
Yeah.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So I want to go ahead and take a look at some of this footage, and I'm sure that'll foster more discussion. Russ, I'm going to ask you in a second over here to click on clip number 3 and show us that. Before I do, I want to mention one thing, because you got your point in about the prosecution. I want to bring up a point about that judge. Rich, and Justice Brothers are constantly in court and have been for many, many years. Just in court this morning.
Well, one of us was in court this morning.
Participating.
Somebody's getting more ice cream.
Listen, Mike G don't leave the car unless it's absolutely necessary. Listen, I'm gonna take a nap. Call me if you really need me, Rich. Okay?
Hold on, Your Honor. Let me call Mike G.
Calling the big guy.
My son says, "Why would the boss have to go to court? That's your job, Dad."
Well, what you want to do is you want to go in and say, Your Honor, don't make me call Mike G. He's sleeping in the car. He comes in here. He has to wake up and come in here. He's going to be pissed. You don't want to deal with that. And they're just like, oh, no, never mind. What did you guys want again? Okay, yeah, that's fine. But another one for the good guys this morning. But what I can say is that being in court as often as we have, we've experienced the decisions of a number of different judges throughout 30-something counties in Pennsylvania, fighting for gun rights in each and every one of them. And there are a lot of judges who are either anti-gun or just typically pro-Commonwealth. You got to understand, a lot of judges, a lot of people on the bench are former prosecutors. Isn't that true, Rich?
Absolutely.
A tremendous amount, right?
Yeah.
Frankly, too many, right?
I think over 70% is a pretty good estimate about judges who are former prosecutors.
Which is totally wild. It's totally wild. But I think that this judge was more fair than a lot of the judges that I've encountered in court. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I think what he did, and he gave it to both sides. I mean, obviously, our friends only see the stuff he gives to the prosecutor, but I think he gave it to the defense. I thought he was very fair, and I appreciate judges who are, quote, defense friendly, because I think that the deck is normally stacked against the defense attorney, even though everybody, quote, you have all the constitutional rights in the world. I go, there's certain things that happen in every trial, whether it's this one or anyone. The fact of the matter is I'm sitting there next to my client, and the one of the things that Mike and I will certainly have to get over is, well, if he didn't do anything wrong, why is he sitting here?
Right.
All right. And that's something I address in opening and closing all the time, because that's a common human instinct. It doesn't make the jurors a bad person, because they're going to go, well, you didn't do anything wrong. What do you get arrested for?
It's like, hey, I've never been arrested. You know?
Exactly.
People just walking down the street minding their own business and get arrested. That doesn't sound right.
Right. And I think when we talk about this judge in particular, the other thing that I found fascinating when we go back to the celebrities and politicians make comments, they talked to the local attorneys who were in front of this judge all the time, and they said, Yeah, nothing he does out of the ordinary. This is the way he is all the time. I don't know why. See a lot of commentary like, oh, they got 2 defense attorneys plus the judge defending Mr. Rittenhouse. Like, well, no, that's really just the way he is all the time. He's very defense friendly, and I think he gives the defense a fair shake, which is unfortunately some of the times not what we get.
Yeah, is that what it's come to though? The criminal justice system. I had somebody tell me the other day, we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system. And that really hit a little too close to home for some of the cases that I deal with, frankly.
Yeah.
And is this where we've come in the legal system, though, that it's expected that the judges are going to be pro-Commonwealth or pro-state, depending on where you are? You don't want to mix that up, but pro-government, pro-prosecution, pro-police, and if they're not, then that means they're automatically some egregious pro-defense guy just because they're not pulling for the other side?
I think that's where it comes to. And yeah, frankly, and the unfortunate thing, and I don't know if Mike would agree, the smaller the county, the more pro-Commonwealth I find judges. When we do cases in Philadelphia or Montgomery County, I find that the judges are either fair or more sided towards the defense. There's more, granted suppression motions per capita in Philadelphia as anywhere else. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. I fully expect most of the time when I'm out there, even in those bigger counties, that, it's tough for a judge to look at it and not believe a police officer. And that's something that we struggle with quite a bit.
Did we have somebody chiming in?
I have a question. With your vast wealth of legal knowledge, how did you think the case was going to go?
Oh, we actually made predictions.
Yeah.
You want to say them on air, Rich? Or
I was talking to Russ.
I will say it because I'm ashamed. I was wrong. I thought they'd split the baby.
Okay.
Who was right, though?
Well, I believe your paralegal was right, actually.
No, who else was right? The people on the call who was right.
I thought it was going to be a hung jury, like Rich was saying earlier, with how long they took. But
I thought the one.
No, before we move on, I want to hear what you have to say. You're a very knowledgeable young man.
Mike G was right. He said.
Okay, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
No, and I thought that the biggest problem I thought that the defense attorney has was with the first individual, Mr. Rosenbaum, because he was the one who was unarmed, and I thought that was an issue. I thought it was a much easier case from the defense perspective for whoever the second guy was who had the skateboard who hit him, and the third guy who literally pointed a firearm at him. So I didn't think you'd have an issue with that. I thought that there would be a struggle with the first one. And the interesting thing is, even though I was wrong, and I'll say it again, that if you look at the jury verdict slips, they were all dated different days. The last verdict was the first victim.
I will say this, Rich, though, that I'd much rather have somebody around who questions the predictions and everything like that and comes out with, okay, well, here's why I think this could go another way, and here's why. It really forces us to think through everything. I frankly think that's why the Justice Brothers are a great team, because sometimes you come out with different predictions, you think everything through, and you ultimately get to the bottom of it, come with the best possible solution. But another thing that we're not talking about, and that a lot of people haven't spoken about, is the fact that the possessory offense was dismissed by the judge, with apparently there being this exception limiting the charge to a short-barreled rifle. I mean, if that is true, then how is that not a motion to dismiss, a habeas, or something along those lines? Because that is absolutely blatantly off, right?
That was a weird, from what I read, and I didn't read the statute.
Not being Wisconsin lawyers,
right?
It's something that falls into our wheelhouse. So if it's something in Pennsylvania, they say this, we would easily, all right, wait, no, that doesn't apply. We deal with this in Pennsylvania all the time, where we get something that's completely mischarged and we're like, oh, this knucklehead didn't read the exceptions or something like that. Right. We've got to bring it up in our habeas motion, like the one we're going to early next year, right? Something that's so wildly off, and we're going to just get kicked out of court. But for this to go on this far, if that's truly an exception, isn't that bonkers?
I think with the commentary I read on, it's a very poorly written statute in Wisconsin. Because people ask me about in Pennsylvania, he would not be allowed to possess that rifle in Pennsylvania under the age of 18, with the exception of hunting, because a 12 to a 16-year-old and those things can do hunting maneuvers. But it's a Wisconsin law, so I don't. Yeah, it wasn't illegal for him to possess the rifle at that particular moment. So
could that open this up at the federal level? Like what?
No, that's a state law claim.
No, but there is some. There are some
things
issues
going on at the federal level now, right?
Well, there are some issues that could be raised on the federal level, because when they questioned him at the outset, talking about who bought the gun and everything like that.
Yeah,
like a straw purchase kind of thing.
I mean, I hate to say it. I don't want to narc anybody out, but that fact pattern sounds an awful lot like a straw purchase to me. Right? I'll put it this way: if a client even thought about saying this, and this happened to a law enforcement officer, I would be like, "You are not saying any of that. We are not, not making any statements, and that's going to be that, unless we got immunity, right?"
Well, according to the media, his mother drove him across state lines with it, but the whole 20 miles.
Well, I think there's something else that was conflated here by a lot of people who were looking from the outside in and maybe not paying attention. Them saying, "Oh well, he crossed state lines with a gun that he was illegally possessing, and therefore it's not justified." That is not accurate. That is not correct. That's not the way it works. Rich, you always bring up the famous Judge Evans quote, right? What's that?
Judge Evans, I was dealing with a case and trying a case where the client was absolutely prohibited from possessing any firearms. He was a multiple-time prior felon. He was at a bar or something like that, and a guy attacked him from behind with a knife or a brick or something. He turned around. He was carrying a weapon illegally, and he killed the guy. And the argument was, well, justified use of deadly force. And didn't even mention the firearm because I didn't have an argument. That I fully expect to be convicted. That jury came back with a question that if we find him, he shouldn't have been in possession of that firearm. He's illegally in possession of the firearm. Can he still defend himself? And we argued about the answer. And Judge Evans came out in Dauphin County and said, listen, whether or not he was in legal or illegal possession of the firearm is irrelevant to your determination of self-defamation. You don't have to let anybody kill you. That's the bottom.
Right.
And, the jury in that
way
case,
you could put it.
Yep, jury in that case made the correct decision on self-defense. And unfortunately, as much as because I was a defense attorney, there was no real defense to the possession, and he was found guilty of that, which is the right decision. So, if the law had said Kyle wouldn't have been able to possess that firearm because he was under the age of 18, if the Wisconsin law was the way the prosecutors had argued it was interpreted, even if he was guilty of that, that doesn't mean he's automatically guilty of murder. He still has the right to defend himself, even with a legal weapon, if he's, justified.
I can't stand how some of these commentators also make this a race thing, because it's the furthest thing from it. I mean, Rich, you and I have defended people of all colors, ethnicities, all backgrounds in these situations and in similar situations. And I think the bottom line is when they're really instigators is who they are, whether they're in the media or they're politicians go out there and say, well, if Kyle Rittenhouse is a black guy, would you still be supporting him? Because the answer is abso-effing-lutely. And I think everybody in our law-abiding gun-owning community would stand shoulder to shoulder with me and say the same exact thing, loud and clear. That has nothing to do with anything. Of course we would. We would absolutely 100%. Nobody has to let somebody else kill them. It doesn't matter what background you come from. That's ridiculous to try to make it all about that. I know they want it to be about that really, really badly, but it isn't. It's about the right to protect yourself. It's about the right to defend yourself and the right to not have to let somebody else kill you. So, Russ, with that, why don't you hit clip 3? I know that we got to get Rich out of here on some kind of reasonable time schedule.
What type of ammo was in that gun? Is that right?
I knew they were 223 full metal jackets. The first time I shot it, I had to load it into the magazine.
So you knew the type of round, but you didn't know what those rounds were capable of doing. Is that fair to say?
Believe a bullet's a bullet.
as you sit here today, you know that there are different types of bullets, right?
Yes.
You know that hollow point bullets, for example, do different things to a animal or a human than Full Metal Jacket bullets, correct?
Yeah. Full Metal Jacket is a defense round, like another type of defense round. I know people use Full Metal Jacket for hunting, and hollow point is something that causes more damage.
Hollow point bullets are designed to hit the animal that they're being shot at, let's say a deer, for example, and explode inside that body, correct?
No, I don't think so.
When you say explode, are you saying?
I object to the relevance of any of this.
Okay, yeah. Press pause. Hold on. Press pause, because if Rich is going to bring that up, then I want to talk about that right now, because I'm writing this down as we're talking.
Sorry.
I need to bring this up.
I feel like I'm in court. Objection, relevant.
Yeah, right. Well, in any case where the ammunition seems to be something that the prosecution wants to bring up, we file a motion in limine.
Right.
And the reason is, Kyle said a bullet's a bullet. Now, factually speaking, that's not exactly true, right?
Right.
But legally speaking, if we're talking in terms of what is deadly force, they're all deadly force. It's not like, oh, this is deadlier force. It'll make you deader.
It'll make you more dead. You'll be dead twice.
Well, if they really exploded, maybe.
Super duper deadly force. They made him really, really, really dead.
And I want to point out, in Pennsylvania, and Mike and I lecture about this all over state, deadly force is any force readily capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. It doesn't even. It's serious bodily injury is the minimum standard. So, I'm sitting there. I'm like, Mike, I'm going to stand up and say objection on your show here, and they're going to go, sustained. I don't know. Are we supposed to overrule that?
Right. It's a ridiculous line of questioning. I don't know why we didn't get objections over there, and frankly, I think it should have been addressed with a motion limine. But that's a good point. Now, he also throws in wildly inaccurate information as the foundation of his. I don't even know if that was a question when he's talking about the exploding bullets. But the judge pipes in and says something. Russ, why don't you let it play for a few more seconds so we can see what the judge said when he piped in?
I don't know that it'll actually resume, but here it goes.
Expand or explode, because there are such things as exploding bullets.
Sure. Let me rephrase. Mr. Rittenhouse, what is your understanding of what a hollow point bullet would do if it were shot at, say, a deer?
I don't think people use hollow point.
That wasn't my question, sir. What is your understanding?
That there's serious bodily injury.
Yeah, right.
It's readily capable of doing so, right?
Certainly
just
not
like
explode, yeah.
Readily capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. I thought it was interesting that the judge was able to pipe in and say that. I think that there are many judges on the bench who would, number one, not mention anything at all. Frankly, the defense counsel should have piped in, like you were saying, right?
Well, yeah. I'll point out that I've been in a lot of, do classes and bench bar conferences and things like that. We talk to judges, and a lot of judges are pretty loath to jump in. It's the attorney's case. A good judge will sit back. And if you go to a lot of those conferences, I know Mike and I have been there. He's like, they always talk about cases. We're like, why is this guy not objecting? What is he doing? This is completely inappropriate. Because you get a judge, come in. Because the other thing you do, and from a strategic standpoint, not particularly this case, there may be a reason that we don't object to an objectionable question for a reason. And if you have a judge who chimes in to do something, why didn't you object? Well, I'm not going to give my whole strategy. I want this in. Because it opens.
I thought it was good for my case to let it get in.
Your case, or you want to open the door for something that you want to present later, and unless he asks that question, yours is objectionable unless he asks an objectionable question. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. But I would be curious to ask the defense attorneys about why they wanted to let this go on for, how long it's going on for, about what kind of bullets he's using.
Maybe I've got PTSD, though. Maybe I got PTSD, but I can almost see this playing out with other judges, where he asks that ridiculous off-base question based on, a false foundation. You object, explain why, and the judge overrules the objection and agrees with the false basis, right? Because doesn't know any better.
Right.
And how many judges do you know who can say expand or explode, because hollow points don't explode? There are exploding rounds. hollow points expand.
You can also beyond the relevance objection. I think that's beyond the.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. We shouldn't be talking about it at all. Yeah, absolutely.
What does Rittenhouse or anybody know about that who can testify to it accurately as a lay witness? I think that gets into expert testimony.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like an expert witness then, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's true, but it's still not relevant, right?
Yeah.
It's still not
deadly
relevant.
force.
It's still not
deadly
relevant.
force is deadly force.
Objection. One, it's not relevant. Well, it might be relevant. Well, two, he's not a bullet expert, Your Honor.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Well,
had a
it's like
case
that,
like that once, and the judge was telling me that we didn't need our expert to talk about it. And I said, well, you're not going to let me talk about it, right? So you're not going to let my client talk about it, right? So I think we need an expert.
What's that?
What's that?
It sounds like they're just trying to make it sound scary to like the average person.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Exactly what they were doing.
Well, that's like the obvious.
The fear
But
narrative.
that's not appropriate.
But
Well, it's like the
because we're
caliber argument too. The caliber argument's kind of stupid. I mean, the mob used to use 22 handguns because it would penetrate the skull, but then stay in the skull and bounce around and scramble your brain.
It rattles around
Right.
inside like a Pac-Man. No mess. No mess.
Less likely to live
too
that way.
much knowledge on that one.
Yeah, right. Got a couple Italians on the show here.
Well, I think
No idea what you're talking about. My name
Yeah.
is Michael Peterson.
Can I take the fifth, or is that going to be held against me later if I take the fifth? Rich?
I like how Mike got quiet. I have no idea what
Why don't we play that video for
Yeah.
you?
I think part of the defense's strategy here is to make the prosecutor look like an idiot on his own.
Well, that's dangerous though,
Yeah.
because you get one person on the jury who hears about exploding bullets and thinks, "Wow, this guy must have really been trying to, go out there and murder some people," right?
And he didn't even have those in there, so he had the
talked about full metal jackets and the
Right.
idea that it causes more damage, it goes through people and things like that. And I think the argument comes down to, if you allow it in, well, he put these rounds in his rifle because they were more deadly than other bullets he could have gotten.
But it's all deadly force.
Right.
It's all deadly force. So
some bullets are nice.
you should have used the less deadly ones so you would kill him, but kill
Yeah.
him less.
Yeah, use the nice rounds.
Anyway, go ahead.
I don't use full metal jacket. I use yellow jackets.
Yeah, use
Bag of
killer
bees.
bees, maybe. Bag of bees.
No, they're less deadly.
Press
unless
play.
you're allergic.
We got limited time with Rich. Press play.
What that bullet would do, let me rephrase it then, because you're aware that people use hollow point bullets in their pistols to defend themselves against other people, correct?
Yes.
Ryan Balch, for example, testified in this trial that he was carrying a pistol loaded with hollow point ammunition for self-defense. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
So what is your understanding, if you have one, as to what hollow point ammunition would do to a human?
I believe it would do the same thing as any other bullet. Like I said, a bullet's a bullet. I just
make
believe
you dead, bro.
hollow points. I'm sorry, I don't know much about ammo. I'm trying to think of what I remember, but I just don't know much about ammo.
So you didn't know the difference between what a full metal jacket bullet would do versus a hollow point, right?
I believe a hollow point, I just don't know much about this. I believe a hollow point would cause more damage
to the first target, but it wouldn't continue through to any other targets, right?
I don't know the answer
Whereas
to
a
that.
full metal jacket bullet is specifically designed to continue through its first target and keep flying, correct?
First of all, the hollow point is not guaranteed to stay in the first object struck, so what you said was not correct. Secondly,
there's no testimony on that, Your Honor.
No, but you've been testifying, and that's what Mr. We're going to take a break for lunch.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rittenhouse.
Good afternoon.
You testified earlier that there were times that evening when Mr. Rosenbaum had threatened you. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, press pause. I think we got what we needed out of that one. That's ultimately it. He also, at certain points in the cross-examination, said, like, why didn't you buy a handgun? Why didn't you buy a pistol? And Rittenhouse ultimately went back to his age. And
he didn't buy the firearm that he used, which is a problem for the guy who bought it for him.
yeah. But specifically in terms of the handgun, he brought up the age restrictions. Right. Yeah. But another bogus, nonsense, irrelevant question. No.
Right, because it's deadly force. Is deadly force. Whether you fire a 45 or you fire a 22.
Right.
You fire a 22 at another human being, you cannot come into court and say, well, it was only a 22. I didn't really need to be justified. Everybody's going to look at you like you're nuts.
Now, if the prosecutor asked him, well, why didn't you buy a cork gun or why didn't you buy a water gun, then, yeah, I guess that would be a little bit different, right?
Why didn't you use a bag of bees?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Why didn't you buy a bag of bees would have been a relevant question.
That's right.
The prosecutor really dropped the ball on that one. The bag of bees theme would have really sealed the deal for him.
Well, hey, in
why
Jersey,
don't you hit that next clip? Russ, hit that next clip while we got Rich.
What, number 4? Yes.
Yeah,
Deadly
number 4.
force to protect property.
The one after 3.
Mm-hmm. Wait, that's after 3?
You'd agree with
What are
me
these faces?
that you were not allowed to use deadly force to protect that car source building, correct?
Yes.
You'd agree with me that you were not allowed to use deadly force to stop someone from smashing the windows of an unoccupied parked car, correct?
I don't think you could use deadly force for that.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone from lighting a metal dumpster on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone from tipping over a porta potty, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force.
Are these facts
to stop
questions,
someone.
Rich?
Objection. Can I object? He didn't use deadly force on any of these things.
Well, shut up. Let it play, Russ. Spoiler alert.
I'm the keyboard attorney here.
Press play.
From lighting a flatbed trailer on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone who is about to start an unoccupied car on fire, correct?
Correct.
You'd agree with me that you can't use deadly force to stop someone from lighting some traffic cones in the middle of the street on fire, correct?
Correct.
So you understand that there's a difference between using deadly force to protect yourself and using it to protect property, correct?
Yes.
And you'd agree with me that you're not allowed to use deadly force to protect property, correct?
Yes.
But yet you have previously indicated that you wish.
What happened?
Oh, come on. That's the
going
best
on?
part.
Yeah.
You'd agree with me that you
there we
were
go.
not allowed to use deadly
Did it just
force to
start over?
protect that car source building, correct?
Yeah, I think
started
it
over.
started over. I don't know why it stopped. That's unfortunate.
You skip ahead.
I don't know how to skip ahead using PowerPoint. I don't have a PowerPoint degree, man.
Okay, do
Well,
you have the timestamp on the YouTube?
I'm going to ask him about his
You'd agree
the
with
night
me.
before.
Right. Ultimately, there was an allegation that Rittenhouse said something along the lines of, "I wish I had my rifle," when he saw a bunch of looters or rioters or whatever it may have been.
Right.
And so this guy was trying to tie this in somehow, like the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon almost, but he's trying to tie this in somehow to his motive on the night of using deadly force against Rosenbaum and the other guys.
Right.
But the judge had already apparently dealt with that in a motion before the trial, right?
Correct. He excluded that.
He said you can't use this, and maybe we'll revisit it or something like that. And this guy went down that road anyhow. And if we can somehow, Russ, maybe if you could pull it up on YouTube and get the timestamp, because I put the number of the timestamp in the clip title, maybe that'll help.
Yeah, I'll
but
get that.
ultimately, the judge, flips out on him, says, "What is wrong with you?
Right.
Where do
remember
you
that.
get the? Where do you get the? What's a good
Nads?
word to use here?
Audacity.
Audacity. Where do you get the audacity?
The criticism of the prosecutor, and maybe not just the prosecutor in that, is one of the things that you learn when you try cases is you really have to prepare for a lot of eventualities. And it seems to me, from watching a lot of the trial, both during when it was happening and afterwards, preparation for the show, it seems like that particular video that shows him making his comment about wanting to have his rifle when there were people burning whatever, dumpsters or cars or whatever, I think that must have been a big part of the prosecutor's case. And once it got excluded, it seemed to me he was trying to find a way to get it back in because he didn't have a backup plan. Like, if this doesn't all fall into place, and you have to understand that when you're in trial, you may have a plan, but trust me, that, it's like the Mike Tyson quote, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So, at some point in a trial, that's going to happen, right? Something that you're not expecting or not knowing or really not 100% ready for. And if you can't move, you're going to not be very successful as a trial attorney because unexpected happens all the time, especially with judges' rulings and objections and things you think you're going to get in, but you're not. And it seemed to me, and the shame part about it is, if you're looking at it from a lawyer's perspective, is if you get that evidence excluded well before trial, how do you not figure out a way to deal with that well in advance? And it's not just, pro or prosecution or pro defense. That's just a lawyering criticism that I have, that you have to be ready for that. And if you lose a piece of evidence you can't use, you got to figure out a way because we're still moving forward. And it was a criticism I had for the prosecutor, like, you got to be able to do something or drop the case. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. That's all simple enough. Get rid of the case. Now, I will say this is going to be unpopular among the audience. There were certain things I picked out of the cross-examination that I thought he did well. Because as an attorney, you don't get to file a motion to change the facts, do you, Rich? It's a little bit different with the prosecution because they wield a little bit of power. They've got a little bit of discretion. So you have the right to be irritated at them when they're moving forward with a bad case. But if you're talking about as an advocate, maybe it's somebody over his head making the decision, right? You're stuck with the case. You gotta move with the case. I think that there were certain things he did well in that cross-examination. One being when he's talking about Rosenbaum, obviously we discussed the fact that he doesn't have to be armed in order to pose that threat of death or serious bodily injury and it to be imminent. But if you're trying to convince a jury, you want to paint that picture of the unarmed victim, don't you, Rich? And he had a line of questioning where he didn't attack you with a bat. No. He didn't attack you with a club. No. He didn't have a gun. No. He didn't have a knife. No. And got him to say he didn't touch him. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you've got the intelligence that God gave geese, you'd understand that that's really not the issue. But I think that as an attorney, if that's what you've got to go with, I think he did a pretty good job of that. Maybe I would have changed up the order of where he brought that up, whether he led with it or closed with it, Well,
that's technique things, and and I know that you lead and close with your strongest stuff because same thing as writing. The stuff you start with, the stuff you end with are the things that people remember the most. The stuff in the middle is the stuff that gets buried. And the way I try to do cross-examination is it's repetitive. Even though prosecutors and other lawyers like it's asked and answered. Well, not really. You try to lead with it because you want it to stick in the jury's head. And you hear things more than once, you tend more to remember it. So, I mean, the prosecutor can change the facts. He's dealt the hand that he has. He went forward the prosecution. He probably shouldn't have. But, I mean, he's got to do the best with what he's getting. My frustration with him, one, is never disobey a judge's ruling. If a judge says he can't do something, the one of the things is you can't do it. Whether you agree or disagree, he's the judge. He's the guy in the black robe. Right. But the other thing is if he takes a ruling and it's something that you don't expect or takes away a piece of evidence that you expected to use, you have to be able to address that and deal with it to be an effective advocate.
You're talking about bringing up the same thing over and over again on cross-examination. Reminds me of that case we had together where we had to show that something was a matter of public concern. And my line of questioning on cross-examination had the word public in it for like 10 questions in a row. You're elected by the public? Yes. You serve the public? Yes. You owe duty to the public? Yes. All you heard was public, 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 public. You can't tell me it's not a matter of public concern,
The
right?
funny thing is, the guy who was doing that cross-examination, I think that was the first time I ever saw him do cross-examination, and I went, I really like this guy. I really. and then here, many years later, I still really like that guy.
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say you got to know him.
Yeah, I was like,
And then all that went out the window.
It was like, because I hadn't seen him, and I was like, wait a minute, you want me to go do the case with this guy? Yeah. Does he know how to question a witness? What does he do?
Yeah, don't worry. Just hold my jacket for me, young man.
I did the first witnesses, and then Mike G did that witness, and I'm like, well, I hope this doesn't go bad. I'm giving him this guy. And he's questioning him. I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty darn good. I'm gonna. This guy's really good. All right.
Well, either that or this guy's a vicious animal, right?
Examination. Sometimes you got to be a vicious animal, and sometimes you don't. And the idea of when to know how to ask questions is an art in and of itself. And because of the person who was on the stand, being a vicious animal in that case was necessary and effective.
I think so. It was like Joe Pesci in that scene in Goodfellas where Billy Batts tells him to go get the sign box and he jumps on it. Oh, goodness. All right, Rich. I know that we had you for 60 minutes. I don't want to keep you too long. We appreciate you being generous with your time the night before Thanksgiving. Do you have anything that you want to add? And if anybody's got any questions they want for Rich specifically, you've got 60 seconds to put them up in the chat. Because we're about to let them know. You got 60 seconds. It's down to 50 now. Down to 50 now. Rich, do you have anything that you want to leave everybody?
No, I think what we can learn from this, and the thing that I've learned from this, is that despite for all our imperfections, the jury system is still the best system that there is around. I think the jury got it right in both the big self-defense claims that were made. I think Mr. Rittenhouse was absolutely right, and I think those people in Georgia were absolutely wrong, and the jury saw it. But I think there's a lot of lessons that our law-abiding gun owner community can take from it, that you have to understand that when you're forced to do this, it's not, even as a case is clean cut, even though, it had video, it still went to a jury. And I think for those few days, you just don't want to be, Kyle's shoes. That's tough. It's a tough place to be. And I remember I was at home next to my wife. We were watching the verdict, and they were like, please rise. I looked at Kyle's face. I'm like, I know that look. He'd rather be any other place on the planet, but right there at that moment. And, because it's a lonely place to be when you're the client in that situation, that these 12 people have deliberated. They really have your life in their hands. And, that's what it is. But I mean, it's the best thing to do is you got to know the law, and you got to make sure you understand, what the law is. You exercise that right to carry that firearm for your defense or somebody else. Know the law, because if you don't, bad things can happen.
His life has changed forever, regardless. That's just a life-shortening experience, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. That's a very, very stressful couple of years for this kid, and no matter the outcome, that's going to have an impact on him forever. You're talking about being in that place, being a lonely place, and this case didn't get to what I'm about to talk about, but there's something that if you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. You have to go through it. But there's that sound of when a defendant's about to be incarcerated, where you hear that handcuffs holster unsnap. That unsnap of those handcuffs coming out is a sound that the first time I heard it, and because you have the surrounding circumstances, you know what's going on, you never forget that.
Yep.
And if you have somebody sitting there with you who's a defendant waiting for their case, that sound will mess them up forever.
Right.
That is a scary sound for a lot of people, because that means you're not coming home for a long, long time, right?
Right. And it puts home the seriousness of the situation, because, you can see it. You've been in a courtroom, the sheriff starts approaching, and you hear that click, and then they come out. And, that's a tough situation to be in. It's a lonely place. But, I mean, what I will tell you is that the one of the great and most rewarding parts of my job is when we defend people who are accused of crimes, and they were defending themselves, or frankly, they're not guilty of crimes, and, they get that legal vindication. I don't know if they'll ever really outlive that or the trauma that they've been through, but that legal vindication. And that's why I do what I do. I know that's why Mike does what he does, and that's why we do it together. So we were going to continue to do that, good, bad cases, bad public opinion cases. It doesn't matter. Injustice is something that I fight against all the time, and I make sure that we're on the side of right, and we fight for these guys who come to us and need our help. That's what I'm here for.
We've had a lot of clients cry tears of joy on our very nice suits, right? I just had that last week happen where I was in court and we got the ruling, and this guy, he veteran, competitive boxer, big tough guy, and his just tears start streaming out of his eyes. He comes over to me, gives me this giant bear hug, and rests his face on my shoulder. Yeah. No, I don't want to say he ruined my suit, but I definitely had to get it cleaned thanks to him. I'm gonna bring a raincoat the next time we go to court. Hold on, Your Honor. Give me 1 second, Your Honor. Just put on a poncho like we're at Niagara Falls.
The hug poncho.
We'll get specially branded Justice Brothers ponchos for those situations. What do you think?
There you go.
All right, Rich. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We hope you and your family have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks. You guys all have a happy Thanksgiving as well. And make sure you eat too much food, because that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. And happy birthday again.
We'll see you guys. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.
Take care. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. I do want to, we can keep talking about Rittenhouse because this is, important case with important issues. People can pipe in and ask questions. But before we do that, I found this special footage that I want to share with our audience. Did you see the footage they released of Joe Biden getting a medical checkup?
For the colonoscopy thing?
It's a little more extensive than that.
I don't think I saw that.
I think everybody needs to see this because you're not seeing this in the media.
Did they find his own head in his colon?
Russ, no, this is not a joke. This is serious. People need to see this because the media is not showing this to the public, and you're going to get it on this program.
All right,
you're
here we
going to
go.
see
All
it.
right.
So that's in the doc, Russ. If you don't mind, just pulling that up.
Cool. Where did you see it, Mike?
Just to put a little bit of a break in the action.
Where'd you come across it originally?
I was diving deep into some footage on YouTube. I don't know if. Go ahead.
Okay.
His social security number, not 2. Damn, Roosevelt. Cause of parent's death, got in my way. Now, doctor, I want you to test me for everything. Every disease on this chart.
Fine. We'll just start by drawing some blood. Well, isn't that odd? It's like poking through meringue.
No, try this arm. I saw some blood in there the other day.
Come on, keep blowing. Okay, 12 centimeters. Excellent.
And President Biden.
I'm a big boy.
That's about right.
President Biden getting a pickup.
There's your problem. Well, Doc, I think I did pretty well in my tests. You may shake my hand if you like.
Well, under the circumstances, I'd rather not.
Eh?
Mr. Burns, I'm afraid you are the sickest man in the United States. You have everything.
You mean I have pneumonia?
Yes.
Juvenile diabetes?
Yes.
Hysterical pregnancy?
A little bit, yes. You also have several diseases that have just been discovered. In you.
I see. You sure you just haven't made thousands of mistakes?
No, I'm afraid not.
Well, this sounds like bad news.
Well, you'd think so, but all of your diseases are in perfect balance. If you have a moment, I can explain.
Well,
here's the door to your body, you see? And these are oversized novelty germs. That's influenza, that's bronchitis, and this cute little cuddlebug is pancreatic cancer. Here's what happens when they all try to get through the door at once. Move it, shout ahead. We call it Three Stooges syndrome.
So what you're saying is, I'm indestructible.
Oh, no, no. And in fact, even a slight breeze could...
Indestructible.
Slight breeze.
There
That's
he
some good
is.
foreshadowing.
What do you think?
That's fantastic.
Saw that and I was like, this looks awfully familiar.
Was that FBI drone footage?
It was FBI drone footage of Biden's medical exam.
I think that's what that was.
Man, the
That's
FBI
good
is
stuff.
everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. They're even in the
Gotta be.
doctor's office with you, you know? Why not?
This is Biden, not the Simpsons.
He seems to have the perfect balance going. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I wouldn't call it perfect balance. He's fallen
No.
down a few times.
Yeah, well, you know. That
Yeah,
happens.
he definitely couldn't have handled the escalators like Mr. Burns did in that scene. where he was going
Right.
up and down, right?
Yeah,
He
that
would have
would've
tried
been
to
a
lick
disaster.
them and
Would've
got
been a
his
problem,
tongue
yeah.
caught.
That would have been a disaster.
Yeah, that was
All right.
crazy when he was going up to the Air Force One there.
I wonder if you can pull up. Let's go back to that clip that ultimately didn't work about defensive property.
Okay.
Why don't we go back to that one, because that's it. That's the one where the judge pipes in. I want to hear that in full,
Right.
so that we can talk about it with our
Well,
listeners.
I might have to
Good.
thumb through this one, so I'll hit play, but I might have to skip a bit.
No problem there,
Someone
Russell.
from lighting some traffic cones in the middle of the street on fire. Correct? Correct?
Yes.
But yet you have previously indicated that you wished you had your AR-15 to protect someone's property, correct?
I'm going to ask you to go into the library again for a moment, please. Please don't talk about the case.
He's either forgetting court's rulings or attempting to provoke a mistrial in this matter. He knows he can't go into this, and he's asking the questions. I asked the court to strongly admonish him, and the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an experienced attorney, and he knows better.
Mr. Finger?
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that. And the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact, I granted your motion for reconsideration.
That was not our motion.
Excuse me.
Press pause for 1 sec. Oh no, you can't. You can't pause it, right? You can.
Oh, you got it. Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can.
so
It's running on a
just-
different thing now.
Just for the record here, I saw somebody compare the prosecutor to Michael Scott from The Office, and I don't think that there could be a more accurate comparison to all of
Right.
his mannerisms. But I haven't heard anybody say this. The judge kind of reminds me of the grandpa from Everybody Loves Raymond. Does anybody else see that? I think his name was, right? Remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got pretty, he heated up there.
Michael Scott versus the grandpa from Everybody Loves Raymond. Let's see it.
I believe his name was Frank, whatever their last name was. I
Barone.
forget. Yeah.
There you go.
I did. I granted.
We did not move
That
to
was
reconsider.
their motion.
We have not filed
forgive
any
me.
motions to reconsider
Forgive
in this
me.
case.
That was their motion for reconsideration, which I denied. But I said I denied it, or I indicated a bias towards denial is what I did. Held it open with a bias towards denial. Why would you think that that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
May I respond?
Yes.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because, in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor, with all due respect...
I'm not going to rehash the motion. Yeah, that's absolutely untrue. And there's, no. Your argument's of record. My comments are of record, and why I ruled...
Always
Chris,
when I'm pouring
an
a soda.
outsider, right? You
Yeah.
understand that what he's trying. Part of what he's trying to do is create a record, right? So in case that there's an appeal, that all of his arguments are on the record, and he hasn't waived any of those arguments for the appeal.
Gotcha,
So that's one thing. But if you're at all trying to get a judge to rule in your favor at a trial,
Yeah.
do you think that's the way to go about it? What do you think, as an outsider, as somebody who doesn't sit in court every day, the way he just approached that, the way he's leaning on the lectern over there?
Sure.
May I finish? May I speak? May I speak?
Right,
What do you
right.
think of that?
No, he's being extremely cocky and defensive. And, you mentioned something to me off the air about, questioning whether or not maybe he was almost trying to throw the case. It does make you wonder that a little bit, right? Because why would you get into such a heated conflict with the judge? That's never a good thing to do.
Smug. It's tough to think of an adjective, though.
Yeah, smug is good. That's pretty accurate.
He's smug. So that smug would be the adjective, right? So then there has to be a noun. I can't think of a non-expletive noun. Right?
Yeah, and the judge is heated up. I mean, I don't know how often that happens. You're in the courtroom. A lot more than I've ever been in the courtroom, but I mean, how often
comes
does a
off
judge...
very, very pompous, right?
Yeah,
very,
sure.
Very much I'm better than everybody, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Does everybody else get that opinion from him? I want to hear from the audience, because our audience members are jurors. DG says I was correct with my grammar analysis. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly looks good for Kyle too. I'm sure it made him happy seeing the judge do that, or relieved maybe. Say happy.
Is there a penalty if the prosecutor were to be throwing the trial? What's the penalty for just being the prosecutor, but essentially being the defense at the same time, and just not having a prosecution? How does that work?
DG says, Gary says, how old are you? I don't know what that meant. He said, DG says, Gary, I swear Mike was a Hollywood movie reviewer in his previous life. He knows every freaking movie and actor.
Yeah, you are pretty good with that. Mike has a good memory, folks, if you haven't picked up.
Well,
that might be it.
But you kind of need that.
I would hope an attorney would have a good memory.
Yeah, well, you kind of need that, yeah. But maybe not all attorneys have it. Seems like the prosecutor forgot what the judge said, so maybe.
Jeremy says I thought the same thing. In reference to what? Did you think the same thing, as in you thought the guy came off as smug? Anybody else?
He's probably agreeing with Gary about the movies.
Oh, about the movies. Yeah, name that film.
Right. Go.
All right. Okay, so let's give this a shot. Why don't you continue to play on with it?
Are we just gonna watch the whole thing?
To play us out.
Yeah, play us out.
What do you mean to play us out?
What does that mean? I'm pretty sure this argument goes on for like 10 minutes, so let me know if you want to skip through some of it.
Yeah.
As I did is of record. There's nothing that I heard in this trial to suggest that anything's changed, even if you're correct in your assumption that you know more than I did at the time. You should have come to the court and say, I want to go into this. Why you would think that you could go into it without any advance notice to the court, I don't understand that. And as the defense is pointing out, you're an experienced trial lawyer, and this should not have been gone into.
Your Honor, there have been things in this case, testimony in this case, that I believe opens the door to this. For example, the defense has introduced evidence that the defendant pointed a gun at a man wearing yellow pants because that person was on a car, on the car source line.
Yellow hat.
Now, there's no justification that I can think of
Well, he did have
why
yellow
the defendant
pants
would
on.
point that
The
gun
man
at
in the
someone.
yellow hat.
The defendant has just testified
He's
this
adding to
morning
the repertoire.
that he agreed with that person in the yellow pants, that he pointed the gun at him. He said, I was joking when I said that to the guy in the yellow pants, but he said, he's acknowledged that he told the person in the yellow pants, yeah, you're right. I did point a gun at you when you were sitting on a car.
He said, I did. That's what he
Exactly.
testified.
So,
I should add that Kyle said, yes, I said that sarcastically, which is different than joking.
And during
which
that
is
line of
different than saying,
questioning,
yeah.
I don't know if this is before or after, the defense stands up, says something along the lines of, this is a murder case. We're really asking 10 questions about sarcasm, something of that nature.
Yeah, right.
I sarcastically pointed my gun at you. No.
Yeah, the reaction of the defense is pretty good. DG's comment on that there. Their faces are priceless.
Oh, man.
At what point can the judge go too far, Mike? You know, in these situations where a judge gets heated up, at what point does the judge or can the judge jeopardize a case from a legal standpoint?
In this situation,
like in any situation, I guess, in the courtroom. I mean,
I don't think. I'll tell you. I'll tell you this, ain't it?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, getting into him for going into a motion that he told him.
Yeah, I don't think this is it, but sometimes you see judges really, fly off the handle. So.
Sure, when the judge is there to call balls and strikes.
Mm-hmm.
Been judges have said that. Listen, I'm just here to call balls and strikes. That's true. You're not here to participate in the game. When the judge starts participating in the game, that's when you have a problem.
Gotcha.
And it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. The commentators in this case said that it was like having another defense counsel for him.
Yeah, sure.
I don't quite see that, but there are certainly cases where it feels like there's another prosecutor in there.
Right. Yeah, right.
I don't think it's a case of the judge jumping in and being partially the defense. I think it's a case of the prosecutor just doing a really terrible job.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely seems like he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
That too. I would think that arguing with the judge is not the way that you win a case. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV or the radio, but
that's how
when
Mike
I was
wins
in
most of his
school,
cases, yeah.
When I was in school, arguing with a teacher was not a good way to get an A.
Sure.
So I think the same principle applies here.
I think the prosecutor's very full of himself because he's got Hollywood on his side.
He's full of something,
there's
I'll
that.
give you that.
There's the political aspect of it, sure.
Right.
Yeah. Clearly, he didn't even understand a lot of the facts. So, but that's how bad things are these days with this type of thing. Did you guys see Kyle Rittenhouse on Tucker last night at all?
No. Keep going with this.
Okay.
You stop changing the subject, Chris.
So my apologies. I sincerely apologize, Your Honor.
You should.
Chris wants to bring up every other conservative media show other than this one.
Well, he said what you always say about there's no winner. That's why I was mentioning it, because Kyle actually said what you say, Mike.
I don't need Kyle Rittenhouse to tell me I'm right. We all know.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
right.
that's true. This is true.
We know Mike is right.
Yeah.
All right, let's
I hate
roll,
to say it. I've done
right?
a lot more of these cases than he has, right?
Yeah, that's true. Although he did do a pretty good job. He was pretty good on the stand.
Ready to roll?
All right, hit it, Russ.
All right.
He's agreeing. May I finish, please? I'd like to have a chance to make a record if I could, without being interrupted, if that's okay.
Wow.
He has mentioned that he's acknowledged that he's used this gun to protect property. He's also just acknowledged that he knows he can't do that. I am attempting to impeach him now with the prior August 10th incident, 15 days prior, involving the same gun, where he is threatening to use that gun to protect property. It goes...
He had the gun with him.
Your Honor, he is saying he wished he did so he could shoot people.
Yeah, and I wish I had $1 million. Shut up, phone. I wish I had $1 million. That doesn't mean I'm, it doesn't mean anything in a case like this, right?
Well, I think the prosecutor's trying to just, argue that if you have it with you, you intend on using it. That's not the case. It's a last resort for self-defense, which is clearly how he used it in this case, right?
Right.
Isn't that where he's trying to go with this, Mike? Just because you'd have a gun? Aren't they said if you are the ones to bring the gun to the fight, then you lose your right to self-defense, right?
Yeah. So. You can only defend yourself if you got no gun in the first place.
Right. What are you supposed to do? Run to the gun store real quick? Hold on a minute. I got to get my firearms ID card because I'm in New Jersey. Can we come back in a few weeks, please?
I think I can see why they try to get it thrown out so quickly, though. Like, the judge is helping because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sure. Yeah, that's right.
Once you hears it, that's
very,
it.
very true.
Mm-hmm.
You can't unring a bell.
I was reading a transcript for a trial that's tangentially related to a trial I've got coming up, and there's this portion where apparently one of the attorneys asked a question the judge found to be inappropriate, and the DA asked, I moved to strike that last question, and judge says the last question is stricken jurors you shall not consider the answer to that question in your findings. But I'm reading it. It's not, it didn't go away, right?
Right,
I'm reading it, and they heard it.
Right.
They heard it.
So it's kind of tough.
Right.
It's like they need like the Men in Black thing where you like wipe it from
Yeah.
your mind.
It kind of makes you remember it more, unfortunately, the way the process is, because you're like, oh, I'm definitely not supposed to remember that.
Hey, you remember that thing you're not supposed to remember? Yeah. Well, then stop remembering it.
Yeah. I need to remember not to.
I can't. It's stuck in my head.
Exactly.
All right, keep going. Let's hear what this smug. Hold on. I mentioned this in the comments over here. I could say it out loud for those of us who can't see the comments. Years ago, and I'll have to figure out who it was that he said it about. I want to say it was Katie Couric or something like that. Bob Grant called her, or he was accused of calling her a no good B word. And when he was confronted about it, you called her a no good B word. He said, no, I called her a smug B word.
That's correct. The record. That's pretty good.
What, is he not allowed to do that? All right,
Go
you
ahead.
ready to roll?
Ready to roll.
Go.
Ready to
There's a
roll.
lot of difference between commenting about something when you haven't got a gun and threatening someone when you do.
It's interesting, Your Honor, because the entire defense theory in this case is Joseph Rosenbaum, who was unarmed.
I want you to tell me what the defense theory of the case is. I want.
May I respond to what you just said, Your Honor? I'd like to respond to what you just said. I apologize, Madam Court Reporter, but I'd like to try and make a record without anyone interrupting me, if that's okay. I believe that there is a central part of this case that Mr. Rosenbaum is making threats that he has no ability to carry out. So, to your point, Your Honor, you're arguing that this August 10th incident, one aspect of why you don't believe it's relevant is the defendant didn't have the gun with him. This case is about someone who didn't have a weapon, and yet the jury is being told because of those threats,
reaching for one,
that means the defendant has to defend himself. So, with all due respect, Your Honor, mere verbal threats have already been shown to this jury and used as a basis for someone's subsequent actions. I am attempting with the defendant to use his mere verbal threat on August 10th, 15 days prior, that he's going to shoot shoplifters with his AR-15 to impeach the defendant in a murder trial. I would ask the court's forbearance to do that. I apologize, Your Honor. You're right. I probably should have brought this to your attention earlier. I may have misunderstood your ruling because I thought your ruling was if the evidence in this case made that more relevant, you would admit it or at least consider it an admittance. I believe, based on the evidence that we've heard, and more specifically exactly what the defendant said earlier about admitting pointing a gun at someone who was merely jumping or sitting on a car, that the door is open now to this testimony. And I continue to believe that his state of mind, his intent, his belief as to self-defense is the core of this case. That was the basis for my motion. You were strongly inclined against it. I understand that. But now we're in the middle of trial, and there's been a lot of evidence that's come in that I think makes this relevant. So I'm attempting to impeach the defendant on his beliefs. I believe I'm entitled to impeach the defendant on his beliefs and on his statements.
I'm going to interrupt you now because you're talking about his beliefs. I think that's what they call
his statements to, Your Honor. Because he just said, can't use deadly force, can't threaten to use deadly force to protect property. So now I'm impeaching him on that.
Your Honor, the court has seen no reason to change its ruling. And just so this record is clear, in spite of the lengthy statement by Mr. Binger, before we started today, the court specifically stated in Mr. Binger's presence, there's been nothing to have me change any of my rulings. There have been numerous occasions during this trial where they've opened the door.
Scotty says, "Can I smack him?" with a question mark exclamation voice. And Scotty's a God-fearing Christian man. He's a good guy. He wouldn't smack a soul if they didn't deserve it.
Sure.
I hate to say it. I think a lot of people sort of get that emotion when they see this guy.
Yeah,
you
he's
know,
not very likable. Yeah. Not likable
They
at all.
would never.
And yes, Scott, you can You can say.
Yeah. No.
I can tell him too. You can't.
We're better than that.
Yeah.
So, did you notice the way the media covered the aftermath of this verdict, though?
Oh, well,
Which media?
insane.
The worthless
lies,
mainstream
you know,
media?
they're still
Insane.
lying about it.
We've got right here. I screenshotted some of the stories. Families react to Rittenhouse verdict, and they got a picture of two people hugging and crying. Jacob Blake's uncle says Kyle Rittenhouse verdict was, quote, an atrocity. New Yorkers protest against Rittenhouse verdict. Protests erupt over acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse victim's family member speaks out on verdict. Well, victim ain't the right word anymore, dude, is it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Guy's acquitted and justified, then he was the victim.
Yeah.
He was the victim of your fallen
Mhm.
loved one. Listen, sorry that you lost somebody you loved. Don't try to kill somebody else and you won't get killed.
Yeah, the fact
Comes down to that,
yeah.
right? That's the basic principle, right? Don't. What kind of country is this where you can't even reach for somebody's gun and try to shoot them to death with it without being killed?
Right.
Come on, what is this? This is Trump's America, right? All these hateful people on the right, not even allowing us to reach for their gun and shoot them to death
right.
with it. What kind of people are they? Gotta be
Yeah.
kidding. Give me a break.
Completely insane at this point, Michael. That's where we're at.
It's absolutely
Mhm.
ridiculous. How do we even entertain this? How do we even entertain this? I feel like people are going to go bananas.
Well, they are. They already have. I mean, it's crazy, the stuff going on, right? I mean, there's still news outlets, international news outlets, reporting that he killed 2 black men.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Yeah, they're still trying to make this about race. I mean, what does it have to do with race? Just like
Pretty
we
su-
saw BLM
wait,
out in
wait,
front of the
hang on.
courtroom, right?
I'll tell you what.
Wasn't
though.
Rosenbaum a ginger? Like the opposite of of a black guy?
Yeah, well, pretty much.
I don't think he had red hair, but either way,
right.
there were no black guys involved.
There's that too.
That's right.
That's just not true. Just not true.
That's completely
Had
false.
nothing to do
right.
with anything.
Yeah,
Complete-
several and people are tweeting about that. You know, there's
Now, Rich was talking about that other verdict that came down. It's an entirely different case. We probably talk more in depth about that once we get the chance to review all of the
yeah, sure. Hmm.
everything about it. But there's really bad things. That case. They wanted to make an issue about our race. I would understand that's one where got a legitimate gripe. You got some of the things the attorneys even said in the courtrooms that I read the verbatim and sort of said that's really what somebody said out loud in a courtroom. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But we won't get too far into that. Rich didn't bring this up. I hate to talk about it without him here because he and I had this lengthy conversation about it. Maybe we'll have him discuss it further, but I do want to say this. When you're thinking about the justified use of force and deadly force, and you think about the reasonable person standard, right? A reasonable person under those same or similar circumstances. Russ is actually right. He is a ginger, just dyes his hair. Typical hides his true identity. That's what DG says. Ultimately, when you're talking about the use of force and deadly force being justified, the law doesn't require you to be all-knowing. It requires you to be reasonable, right? So I want to paint a hypothetical for you. So you're at some kind of an event and you hear gunfire and you see the gunman running down the street and people start chasing him to try to grab the gunman. And somebody tries to take him down, but the gunman kills him and then shoots at a second person, and you're armed. What do you do?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you defend yourself in that situation, right? I mean,
think
you have to.
Answer in the
Forced
comments
to.
right now. What do you do?
Yeah.
That scenario that I just laid out there, that hypothetical.
Right. You're
What do you
talking
do?
about. Well, he did hear gunshots from behind him. Is that's what you're referring to?
No,
Mike?
I'm not
No.
referring to
Okay.
anything. I'm giving you a
Okay.
hypothetical scenario.
Sure.
You hear gunshots, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You see the gunman running away.
Mm-hmm.
With armed.
Right.
And a couple of people try to chase him down. Both get shot at. One gets killed. You're armed. What do you do?
If you're watching this from like as a bystander, you're saying?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
there
sure.
with everybody. You're armed. What do you do?
Well,
I think it's a difficult.
I want everybody
thing
to tell me your answer. What do you do in the comments?
Yeah, the reason I'm hesitating is
shy.
it broke up a little on my end. I was having trouble exactly hearing what you were saying, Mike. But
Okay, I'll say it again because
Yeah.
nobody
Sorry.
is.
Say it one more time. One more time, ladies and gentlemen.
Nobody
Do it
has the audacity to comment.
Yeah.
Nobody has the courage to write it in the comments.
Lay
What
out
do
the
you do?
scenario one more time. My apologies. For
Hypothetical.
some reason, I lost you for a second.
Hypothetical. You hear gunfire. You're at an outdoor event. You hear gunfire. Gunman starts running away. People start yelling that he shot somebody. You see him running down the street, firearm in hand. Two people try to take him down. Both get shot at. One gets killed. You're armed. What do you do? Eric says, let him go. Scott says, take a defensive position. Don't go to a threat. There are too many people running around and too much I don't know to confidently take a shot. DG. Oh, that's completely.
Well, I
different
think
topic.
that the if I
What do
could
you
take
think?
a moment to answer this, that this is part of the problem I think they have.
Rusty
with this
says,
case
just
where
not
they were-
engaged. I'm also not one to look for trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not under imminent threat or danger or bodily injury yourself, and he's retreating or going somewhere else, then you really shouldn't be intervening. And you don't know the circumstances. You don't. They're claiming that he was some sort of active shooter, and I suppose
You're claiming.
yeah.
See, you're not playing the game the right way, Chris.
Okay.
You're not playing the game because you're imputing
I know the lingo,
facts,
right? Yeah.
Right. You're pressing.
Yeah.
You're inserting facts from the Rittenhouse case into my hypothetical, where I just
Sorry.
gave you a
Well,
hypothetical. I didn't say,
I
hey.
gotcha. So
look
outside
at
of the
it from
Rittenhouse case, right? Yeah. Well, you shouldn't really get involved in that situation, in my opinion. Unless you see a crime being committed, the act of a crime being committed, and he was literally attacking who you believe to be an innocent person or committing a crime against them, and then you wanted to, intervene in some way.
You hear that he just shot somebody, right? You hear the gunshot.
Sure, but I don't know that, for me personally, I wouldn't trust that. I wouldn't take their word for it. I didn't see that. And I think this is an important lesson, this case, in that, some of those people.
I think a lot of people would be surprised what they would do in that situation. And this is,
Sure.
I am going on the record.
Mm-hmm.
I might shoot.
So Jeremy says I have a better but similar hypothetical. Mike, if Gage had shot and killed Kyle with the testimony from this case, do you think he would have a self-defense claim? Bingo! That's what I'm getting at, Jeremy. See, the problem is nobody listens to my instructions. I tell Chris, how about this hypothetical? And he's like, well, in the Rittenhouse case, I'm not talking about
we're so
the Rittenhouse
focused
case.
on that,
Giving you a hypothetical.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm raising it for what might be a very controversial reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a legitimate contention that the last guy to get shot in the arm, had he shot first, could make a legitimate argument that he had a reasonable belief that deadly force was immediately necessary based on the totality of the circumstances. Now,
Sure.
he would have been inaccurate, right?
Right, but his beliefs.
The law doesn't require you to be all-knowing. It requires you to be reasonable.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a good question.
So
it's a good
Gross
hypothetical.
was the aggressor. Well, not under that hype. He says he was the aggressor. Under those circumstances, under that hypothetical that I just gave you, right? You hear gunfire, here's somebody just got shot, and gunman's running away. If he had a reasonable belief that that was the scenario,
Mm-hmm.
then I
Well,
think
this has happened to off-duty police officers when they've intervened in, like, let's say there's a
Sure.
shooting at the mall, and
Sure.
you hear everybody screaming and yelling that there's an active shooter, and then you see some guy run by with a handgun and in jeans and a ripped T-shirt, and he happens to be a off-duty officer who's trying to intervene in a positive way, and the individual who sees him thinks he could be the active shooter, so they take a shot at him and kill him, right?
Yeah, there
That's
are all
happened.
kinds of confusing scenarios that take place, unfortunately. I remember one that happened when we first started to do this program. We had some law enforcement officers come on and talk about it. It might have been right around Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Something in a mall where I don't think he was an off-duty law enforcement officer, but good guy with a gun got shot during some kind of a active shooter scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I don't remember exactly what happened, but good guy with a gun got shot. Does happen. And there are reasons why it could be justified, but mistaken. So if you have a reasonable belief that's objectively reasonable, meaning the jury finds that, if you have a belief that's objectively reasonable, meaning you had that belief and the jury finds that your belief was reasonable under the circumstances, an imaginary reasonable person under those same or similar circumstances would have that belief, then you would be justified. Now, there's also a step down where if the jury finds that you did have that belief, but your belief was unreasonable, that's what they call imperfect self-defense, leads to a manslaughter charge here in Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
And for everybody who's saying that, he should have minded his own business and he should have been there in the first place, that's exactly what they pull with Rittenhouse, right? That's exactly what they pulled with him on the other side, saying, oh, well, he didn't have a right to defend himself because he shouldn't have been there in the first place. No. It works both ways. I'm sorry, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, everybody.
Should the protesters have been there,
on the
though?
justified use of deadly force.
It's still a free country.
And it is possible. I know it's kind of a difficult thing to wrap your head around, but there are certain circumstances where you could have everybody shooting everybody and nobody be guilty. Everybody be justified, right?
Sure,
Misunderstanding.
Sure. Probably happened, yeah.
Scott says at the seminar with Steve Austin, he made it clear that you need to be real cautious in getting involved in third-party situations. Sure do, for practical reasons, but legally, would you be justified? That's the question.
Right.
You might have an uphill battle. You certainly have more explaining to do when you turn out to be totally wrong, right? When it turns out that you're totally wrong. In this situation, he was totally wrong. You have explaining to do, but that's not the end-all, be-all. Steve Austin, I have a feeling that's not his name. Why am I not Austin?
Isn't that bionic man?
Stone Cold?
Stone Cold did not give a seminar. Stone Cold Steve Austin did not give a seminar. Austin Davis, you're thinking.
He's
about.
at most of your seminars.
Austin Davis, not Steve Austin.
Gotta watch out for those guys with two first names, though.
Woo!
Austin
Ric Flair will be at your next seminar, right?
Wait,
high flying, jet flying, limousine riding, Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, wheeling dealing, kiss stealing, son of a gun.
Live next week at Mike's seminar, Ric Flair.
Woo!
Woo! Signing autographs and everything. He could sign your book with you.
People in the media were trying to make the point that Grosskreutz had a self-defense claim, and therefore Kyle didn't, but it doesn't work that way. That is absolutely right that it doesn't work that way. Absolutely right that it doesn't work that way. And I know that we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear that if he had used deadly force and been mistaken but reasonable. Dursa says, let me know when the Steve Austin seminar is. We're getting Stone Cold going to show up. He's going to drink some beer.
Right.
And open up a can of. He's used a lot of words I can't use on the air, right?
I think it's listed on gunlawseminar.com, right?
Gunlawseminar.com.
It might be sold out, but
the Stone Cold Stunner seminar.
That's right. We got to get him on the program now.
Absolutely.
Woo! Yeah, well, it's a messy situation, and unfortunately, oftentimes these situations are way messier than I think people realize.
There's a difference between inadvisable and illegal, right? I say that on a fairly frequent basis. And maybe getting involved in one of those situations when you don't know all the facts might be inadvisable, could end up not being illegal. Now, I'm not recommending anybody do that, right? You'd be putting yourself in a dangerous position for sure. But if we're talking about strict legal principles, there's a possibility that he's found to be justified under those circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
The reasonable person standard.
DG says Mike should start showing up at his seminars just as a different Hollywood actor. You know, it's funny is I showed up to this trial out of county, and It was a county that I'm not at very often, and my paralegal was in the hallway, and one of the sheriffs was walking by, and she said to this other sheriff, she's like, "You see that guy in there?" And he's like, "No." She's like, "John Wick's in there about to do a trial."
That's awesome. Yeah, you've got that a couple times.
John Wick is right.
Yeah, right.
Apparently, John Wick's an attorney. He's about to do a trial in the middle of nowhere.
Who's the actor that you remember, Philly Chris? He used to do the voice.
Oh, yeah. Walkins. Yeah, I was actually about to mention that. Yeah, Christopher Walkins. He should make an appearance on the show right now, shouldn't he?
Maybe. It's been a while since
Yeah.
I used to do that one on a regular basis.
Stop doing it.
It's
Yeah,
been a
it was
while.
always good. I always
It's
enjoyed
almost
it.
like it's gonna,
Give it a
man,
try.
being
Come on.
rusty.
Don't
being
leave anybody
rusty,
hanging.
that would be very sad though if I didn't have it the way I used to have it, because I used to
think you
have
could
that
pull it
down
off.
to a T.
I know you. You
know?
can pull it off. Everybody comment if they want to hear it.
Let me hear the Christopher Walken.
Right. Everybody throw a like out there for Christopher Walken.
She says,
Hit it, Mike.
Here you go, Mike G. All the facts. Tell that to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and so on. Mike, if you really want to pull your hair out, listen to Legal Eagle's take on the trial. Who's Legal Eagle?
Is that a podcast?
Not to be confused with Legal Beagle or Legal
Yeah.
Seagull, right?
Yeah.
Eagle.
Are those Fauci's
Legal
dogs or?
Legal Seagull.
Yeah.
It's another one we can use. That was my fantasy football team in law school, the Legal Beagles.
The Legal Beagles.
Eric says Ashton Kutcher. I kid you not. I was baby faced in college. When I was in college, think skinny guy, long hair. I was at a toll booth, and the toll taker, this young lady, would not give me my change back because she was insisting that I was Ashton Kutcher and wouldn't admit to it.
Really?
It's like,
That's
wait,
funny.
it's like, do you really think that Ashton Kutcher would be driving this car that looks like is worth like $400 and was bought at a junkyard? I don't even have. I have
trying to
clear
hide in
tape
plain
covering my
sight.
headlights.
You're trying to
I have
hide in
clear
plain
tape
sight.
covering the headlights. The windshield wiper stick fell out, and I gotta keep it in the cup holder to hold it in while it's raining, so I can keep the wipers going.
Was that the Nissan? You had a
Definitely
Nissan,
not
right?
Ashton Kutcher, lady. What?
Was that the Nissan? Didn't you have a Nissan?
No, it was the '97 Ford Thunderbird.
Oh, okay.
I will buy one
another
of those
crappy
again
car.
someday. And
There
there's
you go.
somebody who told me they'd be listening, who
Mhm.
knows the vehicle pretty well because he helped me fill it up with a gallon of water at different locations. Goodness.
Hey.
Oh, Rita says do it, Mike.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. You got to do it.
Walking. And DG says
Yeah.
I can see that. I would like to get that '97 Ford Thunderbird again. Find it somewhere
Yeah,
in the
sure.
country.
Auto
and
soup it
get
up and
all
drag
fixed up,
race it?
You know?
Mhm.
I don't think it's a vehicle that's gonna be drag race anytime soon. But I would like to fix it up and have it drive around, kind of as a
There's
reminder.
something about your first car. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that wasn't my first car. That
Oh,
was-
Your second.
Oh,
or-
man.
What was your first? What was your first car?
Unfortunately, not.
What was your first?
My first Pontiac Grand Am.
Okay,
Maybe.
that's a good car.
Uh-uh.
It's a good
No,
first car.
not-
Well, I mean,
No, it's not. The many of them in the junkyards across
The
America would
first four
disagree.
cars.
right. How about you, Liberty? What was your first car?
My first car is, I'll put it this way, my first car
Yeah.
as an attorney, I had towed out of the law firm parking lot 3 times.
I cannot reveal my first car, and I will
Why not?
never on this show.
Oh, come on. What was it, Mike? You must know what it was.
It was a
Because
Volkswagen
DG will
Bug.
get on. DG
DG
will
will?
get on me for it.
Why?
Because she bought it from Amazon.
I don't know.
Hey, what if I put your car from Amazon? Big steak. You're just funding big tech with your car that you bought in 1999,
I literally-
Liberty.
Here's yours, Philly Chris. I'm deflecting.
The car that you
What's that?
purchased in
Oh, you're
the car
deflecting.
that your parents helped you purchase in 1999, contributing to China having control of our economy.
Right. Mine was a Model T. I was in my 50s when I got that.
A what? A Model T?
Model T, yeah. I'm just kidding. No, it was a 73 Nova. 1973.
You had a Tesla in your 50s?
Model T, man.
Oh, okay.
Ford. Model T.
Oh, I have
Eric says it's a password.
Oh, that could be it. Okay.
What's that?
Oh, that's true. They ask you those questions. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's
that way your family can guess your
what's your
way
best
to your
friend's
account.
name? What's your first car?
So don't tell anybody the first car.
Don't tell anybody anything.
I never used the right thing.
I've literally never used that once. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious for
anything.
everybody.
That's why they
their first cars. Put them in the comments. Just a fun Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
thing.
that's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, no, don't do it now because then it's a password question, right?
If you didn't use it as a password,
tell
throw
us
it
your
in there.
second car.
Your second first car.
77 Dodge
DG says
Aspen.
the Honda
Nice.
Pilot, 2016 Honda Pilot. I'm very surprised at that. Any more of the
That
court
was your
video we
first
should
car?
see? Scott's sick and tired of us talking about movie stars and talking about cars.
I don't know. It
Any
seems to
more
be
of these,
going well.
like, guys, move on with the court video. We can see. Come on.
We talk about gun stuff all the time. Let's talk about cars.
You know, guys, my first car was a helicopter, so I got you all beat.
Oh, sweet, man. Was it a Bell? Was it a Cobra? What did you have?
No, it was ordered from QVC for $25.
Yeah? Oh, okay. All right.
Russ, what are you talking about?
All right. Why don't we hit play on that?
Yeah.
You could go ahead and put in comments anything about cars that you had or anything like that.
Sure.
We'll get to it once we hit pause.
The one time when they're going into Mr. Rosenbaum's the reason he doesn't like guns, and I said something, I whispered in Mr. Krause's ear, it's because of the prior convictions. Please stop, and he did.
That's bogus.
He knows
Both
if you're going to
sides of
go
the
into something that's been excluded in a pretrial order, you better get permission.
What he was doing there, he was trying to have his cake and eat it too, as they like to say.
Yeah, of course, right.
Because he wanted to get in why he didn't like guns or whatever it may be. But it had to do with a prior conviction that he also didn't want that getting in there because that's prejudicial. So he was really playing both sides of the fence there.
Sure.
Why don't you go ahead?
This is ridiculous.
It wasn't excluded, Your Honor.
You know why it was excluded in the first place? Because it was propensity evidence. That is exactly what 90404 is designed to prevent. You're talking about his attitudes. His attitude is he wants to shoot people. Now, I've admitted that kind of evidence in other trials when it's been appropriate. I didn't admit it in this case because, to me, what I've heard in this trial, and by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense
Don't
testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one. Number two, this is propensity evidence. I said at the time that I made my ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you, I see no similarity between talking about wishing you had your AR gun, which you don't have, so that you could fire rounds at these thought to be shoplifters, and the incidents in these cases, which are not, there's nothing in your case that suggests the defendant was lying in wait to shoot at somebody or reflecting upon the shooting for a vast amount of time. Every one of the incidents involves matters that involve seconds in time. So I commented at the time, I don't see the similarity, and I don't see the similarity now. If it's not similar, that's the whole rule. Those are all the exceptions to 90404. Check the authorities, Wigmore and evidence, Judge Weinstein, Colonel McCormick. It's the prior act has to bear the signature of the accused, or it has to be so similar as to suggest it's a common plan or something like that. You have an incident where he's making comments about some alleged shoplifters versus crimes that involve instantaneous actions, whether premeditated murder or whether self-defense. That's for the jury to decide. But I don't see the similarity. I said it couldn't come in, and it isn't coming in, no matter what you think. Number two, I have to be concerned that with what Mr. Richards has said about the progress of the trial, and when you were I said you were over the line, close to or over the line on commenting on the defendant's pretrial silence, which is a well-known rule. I'm astonished that would have been an issue. So I don't want to have another issue as long as this case continues. Is that clear?
It is.
Thank you. Ask the jury to come back in, please. Folks, the objection has been sustained. Go ahead, Mr. Finger.
Thank you, Judge. So I want to turn your attention to the day of August 25th, 2020.
Okay.
You
All right, why don't you hit
had
it right there, because I think that was important for everybody to see the judge standing up for the rule of law there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's important.
Indeed.
His ability to get really heated and then calm is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I suppose.
Gains his composure quickly, yeah.
It's just Kyle was very fortunate to have that judge on this trial. I will
that's
say
kind of why
that.
I'm saying that.
That's not typical. That's not what you're going to see all the time.
Yeah, right.
All right. Billy, Chris, take the wheel for 2 minutes, all right?
All right, sure. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Should we just watch more of it? Whoa.
Let's look at the comments a little bit.
I don't know how to deal with this.
We'll go back to the car thing a little bit. So let's see. DG, unfortunately, have a 2016 Honda Pilot, and it sucks. I thought they're supposed to be pretty good. DG, first car was a 77 Dodge Aspen. Had a 2006 Pilot, too, and it was great until the 2016 and started using German engines. So that's interesting. 2 camshafts replaced under 50,000 miles. That sucks. That's a big deal.
Eric.
That's Durso, 57 Volkswagen Bug. Stick shift here. That's cool. I learned how to drive stick in a World War II Jeep. That was fun. It was a 3-speed World War II Jeep. What'd you have, Russ? Did we hear from you? What was your first car?
Mine was a helicopter.
That's right. So what was your first car for real?
Okay. I do want to be cautious about answering this because I mean, it's not any of my security questions, but it could be used. You know, I do believe that those security questions come down to if you answer them honestly, that is, and you don't just give a bogus answer that you'll also never remember.
Right.
I do think that those are mainly used so that if something happens where you can't get into your account yourself, or if a person who owns the account on whatever system it is passes away or is incapacitated and it needs to be accessed by a family member, I do believe that those questions are relevant for that scenario as well.
What?
Gotcha.
How?
Okay.
What do you mean how?
Russ, I just went into like
what the heck did you guys do? I leave you alone for 2 minutes.
Russ went on a little rant there, but then I finally understood what he was saying. It's actually a good PSA. Okay.
I was going through some of the comments. We were reading through the comments since everybody had kind of chimed in about their cars, and then we were trying to figure out what Russ really had.
Durso had a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah, that's a cool one. There's some cool ones listed in there.
Ford Escort.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody still have their first car?
No.
Because I don't. I crashed mine.
I had the first car I bought for a long time, but I did get
Randy came
yeah.
through with one. My first car was in
79
1979.
for.
Fairmont.
There's something
Speaker
now
while
about
holding the gas tank. Yes, Randy. Sounds right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
Liberty, did you have anything to say regarding the Rittenhouse before we move on? Unless we've got any questions from the audience.
No, I like what you're doing. I definitely just, my comment was more on the Twitter blowing up, like what Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, what's the deal with all of that? Because it's so wildly inaccurate, everything that they're saying, right?
Well, that's Twitter for you.
Gosh, I saw Reese Witherspoon started trending, and I said, "What the heck does Reese Witherspoon?"
Well, we all know she's a gun expert, right?
Right. No, but lo and behold, she would just put out some statement about the trial. These people are very bold.
It's like white supremacists could just walk down the street and cross state lines. It's like, just shut up.
She said, "Woke up
You
this
get
morning."
none of that right. You got none of it right. Like, not even like a little bit.
Well,
like,
she said,
they got some of
bold
it right.
statements. They have a lot of followers, and woke up this morning thinking about every mother, father, sister, brother, friend who has lost someone to senseless gun violence in America. And then
I woke up this morning thinking about every mother and father whose kid tried to murder somebody and got killed in the process. Those
Pretty
poor
sure
people.
that would take more than
exactly.
a morning.
Crazy.
And then there was no justice for their pain. This is a disgrace. No one should be able to purchase here we go with the facts. No one should be able to purchase a semi-automatic weapon, cross state lines, and kill two people, wound another, and go free. In what world is this safe for any of us? And U.S. representatives and judges who support this recklessness will not be receiving my vote, ever. Thank you, Moms Demand in every town, for the work you do. It is vital. And to the families and friends who are grieving, I'm holding you in my heart, and I will never stop advocating for justice. That's the only thing I agree with is, people who are grieving,
I have to wonder.
It's so unsafe for people who want to go out there and try to murder other people, right? So unsafe for them. It's unfortunate, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate that we live in this country where you can't just murder people without having somebody defend their own life, right? You should be able to murder people without any pushback.
Right. We don't want to hear what Reese has to say. We want to hear what gun law attorneys have to say about this. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, the tweets were pretty amazing on both sides. Here's one that I copied.
Guys,
Kyle Rittenhouse shooting 3 Antifa in self-defense, none of whom were black, is white terrorism. A BLM supporter who made anti-white rap songs ramming his car through dozens of innocent whites at a Christmas market, just fleeing a crime. Which is like the narrative they're pushing on this new situation. Yeah. Apparently he was in a knife fight, so that gives him the
I was going to say, what are they considering the crime there? Because it's obviously not running over white people that they consider a crime.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that people are able to own guns, in certain states and protect themselves. Because I heard of a vicious break-in scenario from my friend that happened this weekend, and
what happened?
Going out to protect himself. Well, I don't know if I can talk about it. I'd have to ask them, but I mean, I'm not stating names or anything, but I think it was somebody was killed and, one other person was severely injured. And so I like the person who commented under Reese's tweet and said something to the effect of, I'm thankful that I can defend myself, or my daughter can defend herself, as, for break-ins, for rapes, for different things out there. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's absolutely another side to that. And it's shameful, he said, honestly. It's sad that some people lost their lives. It's sad that these evil things happen, but unfortunately they do, and we need to be prepared.
Right. No, absolutely. That's a good point. Well, I think unfortunately these narratives have been pushed so far that there's a certain percentage of the population, which is much higher than it's ever been, that doesn't understand the Second Amendment or your inalienable right to defend yourself, and they think guns are just bad under any circumstances. So that's kind of where we are now.
Randy says, what about the moronic comments from The View? I haven't. To which moronic comments from The View are you referring, Randy?
That could be any show.
So many. There's
every
so
episode
many to work with here.
Every episode.
Okay, just FYI, you cannot get away with saying anything. DG will tell you, stop watching it, stop doing that. DG has said it like multiple times now. DG is
DG
honest.
plays a lot of solitaire, I think.
You cannot get through to DG, okay? I want DG as my lawyer.
DG makes you feel like a bad American for just about everything, right?
I'm gonna have to start watching The View just for.
We're
DG.
trying, DG. We're trying.
There is a certain amount of research that you have to do in order to know what the other side is saying. Otherwise, you're just fighting yourself in an echo chamber. So sometimes it is necessary to watch the idiocy that is the
Watch
View.
everything. Watch everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was watching CNN today. It was great.
Watch everything.
Yeah.
Hey, I did find hear about this Pennsylvania-made soap company. Maybe that'll make DG happy, right? Buy from Pennsylvania soap makers.
Bag of soap.
Try this out, Russ. Can you pull this up on the internet?
What? I thought
We're
we
gonna
were.
lose Scott. Scott's gonna be like, more on the trial. Stop about the soap stuff.
I'm with Scott on this.
On a tangent. You're not into soap.
You just
Russ?
don't want to pull it
No,
up.
I'm
Come
not-
on.
No, I'm not into soap.
You could
Russ
use some
doesn't
soap,
believe in
Russ.
soap.
You could use some
Brandy,
soap.
why don't you tell us
You
about
could
the
use some
moronic
soap for
comments
your
from The View?
mouth.
What did they say? What did the morons on The View say?
Maybe we could find the clip.
Maybe you could find the clip.
I'll
and then
look
put
for
in
it.
The doc.
I'll do some producing real quick here.
Oh,
Hold on.
okay.
What was it about on The View?
Just
Joy
pull up
Behar,
any
I can't
episode of The
cross state
View.
lines to protest without worrying about getting shot. That's not quite a complete statement. You can't cross state lines to protest and try to kill somebody else without worrying about getting shot. That's all.
Right.
I have to wonder how many of these celebrities are just
I can't
paid
cross
off
state
to say
lines
these
to protest without worrying about getting shot. They're leaving out the minor detail that everybody who got shot tried to kill somebody, right?
Sure. Well, it
But
doesn't
minor
matter.
detail. Just please, if you're gonna protest, just please don't try to kill somebody while you're doing it. That's all.
Well,
That's all we're saying.
I don't think that would count as protesting if you did try to kill somebody. I don't think that falls under protesting anymore.
The whole crossing the state line things is a joke anyway. His father lives there. He also had a job there, right, as like a lifeguard, and it was like a 20-mile ride. And he was driven there that day, I believe, by his mother to go to work earlier in the day.
Also, borders are imaginary.
Well, and yeah, we live in a free country still, I think, sort of, kind of, not really. But and then also one of his attackers came from out of state and drove more than 50 miles. So they don't mention that though, do they,
Oh, no,
Michael?
That guy had a right to be there or something.
Yeah, well, he has a right
Yeah,
to
he's
peacefully
fine.
He had,
protest with his skateboard.
he had the right to drive 50 miles and assault somebody,
Yeah.
while Kyle did not.
Maybe peacefully protest by bashing people in the head with your skateboard.
Yeah.
Try to knock your
What kind
opinion
of country is this where we can't just kill people in the middle of the street without worrying about getting killed ourselves?
Well, yeah, sure. That's where we're headed.
Well,
preposterous.
Not even headed. That's where we are.
Preposterous.
Yeah.
Burn, loot, and murder. Oh, wait.
Damn people
That's
on the
also
right.
BLM.
Mike, did you go over the part in the cross-examining where they were talking about, more of like why he was there and that he had family that lived there and they were really going after him about the putting out the fire? I mean, I thought that looked more good for Kyle or better for Kyle.
You said at one point he was like, "Why were you running?" He was like, "There's a fire."
Right. Yeah. Well, what was so urgent? I think.
It was so urgent.
Urgent.
Not sure if you're familiar with the concept of fire, sir.
I was going to shoot the fire.
Fire is
Mike.
generally urgent in nature.
So you call this area your community? Well, my dad lives there, and I have a job there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious what
prosecutor
Mike
was
thought, though,
horrible.
about the part where he was really trying to like paint him during that part, like, that firefighters are supposed to do that, right? And that you're supposed to
Well,
call
they weren't there.
professionals to do that. And they weren't there and they weren't available, but what were your thoughts on that? It was just a strange line of questioning. I thought it looked better for Kyle.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right.
The View.
The
He
police?
said, Google the View Rittenhouse verdict.
All right.
The View Rittenhouse verdict.
You.
In case anybody has low blood pressure, this will serve as some kind of therapeutic for raising it just a bit.
If you have high blood pressure, then
See
what?
if I can find it.
View Rittenhouse verdict.
You guys are going to drive me nuts.
Put
I
disgusting.
only have a mouse here, by the way. That's why I'm asking you guys to put it in the doc so I can just click a link. I don't have a
mouse?
keyboard on. Yes, the thing that goes with a keyboard.
2 days ago, Nation Defender.
It's not a rat. A mouse goes with a computer. A rat is a creature.
Mouse is also a creature.
No, it's called a rat. A mouse is a peripheral for a computer.
That's incorrect.
All right, Mr. Disney.
Mickey Rat, right?
Yeah. He got fat over the years.
Rittenhouse verdict on The View. I'm looking for it. Part on The View. It looks like there's 2 parts, possibly, The View.
2 parts? I cannot tolerate 2 parts.
Well,
parts to The
I'll
View.
grab part 1. I'm going to put this in the doc for you, Russell.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes they gotta do 2 parts because otherwise YouTube will strike.
Why
it
don't you?
as,
Why are
you're
you checking
putting
it
up
out,
something
Russ?
copyrighted.
Why don't we see this? We have a public service announcement. Very important survival tip for everybody who's tuning in right now.
Oh, I think I know what this is.
So why don't you go ahead and click on that, Russ? Survival tips.
Not only from the burn itself, but from your fingers and your blood flow. Hello, welcome to Waypoint Survival. Today, I want to show you a first aid hack that almost no one knows. Stay tuned. So what we have here is my very small, compact first aid kit that I put together for myself. It did come from a hospital, Meadowview Regional. I'm not sure where that is, but anyway, I think I bought this at a yard sale or flea market, but it was a perfect size. It fits on the belt. I've got a little carabiner, of course, and I've got some other odds and ends like a whistle and some duct tape and things. I may go over this at some point in detail. But one of the things that I carry in here, and this is a recent addition, I just learned about it and I want to share it with you, is I carry a pack of yellow Heinz ketchup in a small pill-sized Ziploc bag. Along with that, I also carry some very small pieces, if I can dig them out here, of aluminum foil. All right, let's get into how you use this. I learned this from one of my students, who is an active EMT, as well as having done extensive time in a third world country as a missionary.
Parody?
And he was telling me that this is how they take care of their burns. And actually, in the class, while melting some paracord, he actually got a burn on 3 of his fingers. And he showed me this hack. And so I thought it was a tremendous thing to add to my first aid kit, and I wanted to share it with you. It's pretty simple.
Must be the vinegar.
All you do is you take the mustard, and you want it to be yellowed mustard. I know there's different colors, but yellow mustard works best. There's a couple reasons for carrying it in a small pill-sized Ziploc bag. First of all, it makes this pack reusable, so I can put it back in here and stick it back into my little first aid kit without it going everywhere, and it also helps keep it from being punctured. So what you want to do is you want to just use the little tear tab and tear it open and get some of the mustard and put it on your burns, wherever it may be. Let's say we've burned these 3 fingers. All right, so we're going to put it on these 3 fingers. We're going to spread it on these burns, right where we've grabbed a hold of the melted paracord, or not too long ago, I grabbed a hold of something that was hot out of the fire. I thought it had cooled off. It hadn't yet enough. So I burned myself, and I've got this mustard on there. Wipe off the excess, and we take the aluminum foil.
Myself for this demonstration.
Open it up, and I've already got 3 sheets cut. You can have as many as you want or as few as you want, but it's nice to have them already cut into shape.
Probably should have done that first.
And you can use the shiny side or the dull side. It doesn't really matter. I've read it both ways. Either one can work. But all we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to put this around the burn.
To seal in the flavor.
We're going to do that to each finger.
Fresh mustard, thank you.
And again, you want to be careful if you have the burns on it. You want to keep from putting too much pressure on it.
Locking the flavor, then when you unwrap them later, you can suck on your fingers.
All right, just like that. And now we have our fingers protected, not only from the burn, but also from any further damage. So what are the reasons why you would want to carry mustard in your first aid kit, and what is the science behind it?
You can barbecue your fingers
Well,
safely.
first of all, a little history. It's been used since ancient times to help heal sunburns. It's also known as a muscle relaxer, And when the skin is healed, it
Yeah,
has a nice,
spread
healthy
mustard all
glow
over
from
your
using the
sunburn.
mustard. Of course, you should always use yellow mustard. And it should never be used on really deep, like 2nd or 3rd degree burns. But 1st degree burns, even ones with minor blistering, it works great for that. Do note that it functions a little different from person to person. And some people will work really fast, others it might take a few more minutes. Of course, you should never use this if you have a negative adverse reaction to mustard. You should leave it
Don't
on
use
for about
mustard
12
if you're
hours
allergic to
and
mustard.
then gently rinse it off. Repeat the process every day for several days until it's finally healed up, and it will help prevent scarring and further discomfort.
You ever notice how they say this in some of these medicine commercials too? Like, don't use this drug if you're allergic to this drug. It's like, how stupid do you have to be to ask that question? Like they were thinking that, well, can I use this drug if I'm allergic to the drug? And they're like, no, don't use the drug if you're allergic. Ah, darn it. I was
The
hoping
answer's
that I
no,
could
you
use it.
moron.
I was hoping I could use it if I was allergic to it. I was hoping that would be a viable solution for me. How stupid do you have to be to have to hear what he just said? Don't use mustard if you're allergic to mustard.
Right.
You're so stupid at that point that we probably don't want you around anymore, right? Maybe if we just stop giving people these kinds of warnings.
Well, the problem is somebody will do it and then they'll blame the guy and be like, well, you didn't tell me if I'm burned, I shouldn't eat the mustard. You know, it's different. I got to burn.
And there will be people on the jury be like, you got to let people know that if they're allergic to mustard, they can't use it. How are they supposed to know not to use mustard if they're allergic to mustard?
In some ways, it's the fault of certain attorneys in a way with all these legal disclaimers, though. You see these crazy disclaimers on things like plastic bags, like don't wrap it around your head and tie
Put it around your face.
Yeah, right.
Please.
Don't put this around your throat.
Don't use it to suffocate yourself to the point where you can't breathe and die.
Right. It's like you're opening a bottle of bleach. Do not drink. Like, really?
Wow.
Really? Why not?
Why not?
Sure.
It smells pretty healthy.
Well, the bottle said don't drink it, but I wanted to see what would happen if I did.
Yeah, sure.
Rita says, Mike, I want the mustard award. No, Rita, the mustard award is not. Maybe we'll turn the mustard award into a good thing. And in our last show of the year, we'll give out some good mustard awards. Maybe Rita will be the recipient of the first good mustard award.
Yeah, there we go.
You'll get a
Jeremy
first
says
aid
the
kit.
foil also keeps the 5G radiation from burning your fingers more.
Good point.
Mm-hmm. Liberty L has a bit of cat hair since my cat. I think I missed half that conversation. It's not going to make any sense.
My mustard
DG
is
says, don't
cat
listen
hair.
to this guy. Sounds painful. Randy says, wild lettuce works much better. Closest thing to morphine. And DG says, lettuce, Randy Schweiss, shouldn't be used with people on certain meds, though. Strange but true. Huh.
Even topically? But here's my question, though. If you're going to go through the trouble of cutting up the foil and getting a pack of mustard and putting that in your first aid kit, wouldn't you just get some bandages and some, like, topical burn ointment?
Doesn't take any
Sorry, I
more
was
sleep.
stranded in the woods and all I had was foil and mustard.
I mean, if you
You guys
break
are
down,
partial to the healing properties of mustard, Chris.
like, if you go off the road and you're stuck in the middle of a tree and
don't you
you're
dare.
in your car and you're burnt and you have some extra mustard packs like Russ would in his cup holder,
There.
then
Question the
maybe,
healing properties of mustard, Chris.
I have to mute my.
right?
Well,
It's
you
the
see,
superior.
I was driving down the
superior.
highway, and this tree grew right under my hood, and the whole
Yeah.
car just stopped.
I mean,
it
it's cool
grew
to know,
right
though.
through my
It
engine.
is cool to know. The next time
So
I'm
I
at,
got out some mustard.
at the fast food place, not that I eat that stuff that often, but maybe I'll grab some mustard and put it in there and some foil.
I'll get some mustard from
Dare.
Amazon
I'm gonna
just
make
to get
a-
on DG's
How do you
nerves.
dare diminish the superior healing qualities of mustard?
Can you imagine if you get pulled over and you have some tinfoil and mustard?
Yeah.
How
right.
dare you? Cops gonna be like, yeah, man, this guy's in some real weird stuff, huh?
Right. I'm going to make a 5G helmet.
I
for
don't know
next
what kids are
week.
using this for these days.
I
Mustard
want to
is
see
a
the rest,
really
though.
good
What else happens? What happens
moisturizer.
next? Can we
All
watch
right,
the
keep it
rest?
going. Keep it
Yeah.
going. Let's hear the rest of the
I
story.
want to see the rest of the and now the rest of the story.
Now, mustard contains a compound called allyl-isothiocyanate, which I had to learn to say, and it is a powerful counter-irritant. Counter-irritants are substances that can relieve pain by gradually reducing it.
Oh, good.
They
So
also
it's
act
nice
as
and
a
mild.
vasodilator, which
is he
means it
saying
opens up
counter
your veins
irritants,
and increases
counter
blood flow
irritation?
to the underlying tissue, and therefore
So
it
it's like
speeds up
the
the recovery
opposite is
process.
irritation.
Mustard also helps draw
I want
out the
something that's
sting,
more quick
and as I
acting.
said already, will help prevent blistering and scarring.
What
Now,
about a
why
stick
do we
of
wrap
butter?
it with aluminum foil? Well, aluminum foil is really good to help draw out the heat, not only from the burn itself, but from your fingers and your blood flow. As your blood pulses in through your veins into your fingers, you're going to have that extra heat. This, of course, will transfer, because it is a metal, it transfers the heat then from your finger to the outside, which helps keep the burn cool and therefore more comfortable.
That's an
This is
interesting
James
point.
Bender
though.
for Waypoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up.
All right,
Also, make sure
time
to
out.
check out the links in the description.
Should I give it a
Chris,
thumbs up?
I figured out the deal. So the reason
Yeah.
why he can't use bandages and ointment
Right.
in that little packet
Yeah, what's going on?
is when you're trying to survive, you want to be as efficient as possible, right?
Sure.
You want to certain things have multiple purposes. So he's going to take that side with the mustard. He's going to do ketchup on the other side with tinfoil. Then when he's done curing his burns,
He'll
he's
have a
gonna
nice,
unwrap the
tasty hot
tinfoil.
dog finger.
He's going to roast a hot dog. He's going to roast a hot dog on a
Right,
stick on a bonfire. And then he'll reuse the tinfoil. He'll have
There
his
we go.
ketchup. He'll have his mustard, and he'll have his hot dog, and he's good to go. So that's the
that
reason
makes
why.
Thank you.
If he had like some kind of burn ointment in the tinfoil, that's not going to be great on a hot dog later on.
Right.
So.
Well, that's a good point. You're right. Multitasking, and I guess if you're hiking Everest or something, every ounce counts. So you might as well bring an edible burn ointment with and some extra hot dogs.
Right.
Yeah. Perfect.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it was good for the show because
Simple.
we can now sell first aid mustard kits.
First aid mustard. First aid bowls of mustard. Travel first aid bowls of mustard.
Have you woken up in the morning and sloshed coffee all over your face?
Or also if you're just hungry and you want to eat a bowl of mustard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Seriously.
Burn
I
your
don't know if that's
tongue.
enough for a
Yeah.
bowl.
We'll have to remember that. No, that was good. Good video. Good find there, Michael. We're on the humor train tonight.
You're hungry, and it's not just hungry, Liberty. It's hungry and
you know it.
No, because the whole point of the mustard award is there's got to be something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to get the mustard award, you've done a really poor job. You're really
That's correct.
unintelligent human being.
Right.
You're gonna need mustard for all those sick burns we give you.
Yeah, that could be it. I did put the links in the doc in case we wanted to check out
Eat
the
a
view
plain
stuff
hot
there.
dog.
And DG says, eat a plain hot dog. Because by applying the mustard and the ketchup, we're financing big tech and Amazon and Jeff Bezos and the
We're
liberal
funding
agenda.
big mustard.
Yeah, because we're kind of going. We better get back to the other stuff because we're kind of going down like the mustard hole. It's like.
I'm looking at the mustard hole.
I'm sorry, the mustard hole. What?
I don't know. I kind of like the mustard segment there. That was good.
So do I, but I was going to say.
People are digging the mustard.
I love this survival
Well, I
stuff.
was
Pretty
thinking,
cool too.
okay, what if you burn your tongue from eating too much mustard, and then you have to put mustard on your tongue?
You weren't supposed to bring spicy mustard.
Yeah, you need the yellow mustard. That's why you need the
DG
yellow
says
mustard. Yeah.
Yakko's Rocks Anyway with their secret sauce. That's in the Lehigh Valley, that hot dog joint, if I recall correctly. Now, there was a hot dog joint in Feasterville that was voted the #1 place in Pennsylvania, from what I understand. I just saw. Don't ask me why I was looking at this. You ever get like distracted by some kind of an ad article, and you end up going down this rabbit hole?
Yeah.
It's like you're doing something serious, and it's like, do you want to see best hot dog place in each state in the union? You're like, of course I do.
Of course.
Doing something really important.
Playing a whole.
But
cross-country
wait, first I
trip
gotta see what place is voted best hot dog joint in every single state in the union. This is far more pressing.
There's a big place on 202. I'm trying to remember the name of it. On the way down to Delaware. What's the name of that
Cheese
place?
Dogs. It's called Cheese
But
Dogs, I think.
Cheese Dogs. It's
Bustleton Pike, Feasterville is. I think
That's
the
on.
place
It's
that was
right on
voted #1.
202. I can't remember
Feasterville.
right now. It's like just on the other
Is
side
it
of
in
Westchester.
It's called
no,
202 Hot Dogs.
Right near Route 1, I think. Anybody know in the comments there? It's a big hot dog place. It's been around for like 100 years or something.
Yakko's has been around a long time, from what I understand. Oh. I know what you're talking about. It's like
remember.
coming back from Delaware.
Exactly. Yeah, on the right. It's like a small little place. It's family
like
owned.
we sell hot dogs. It's like,
yeah. And they're only like $8-9 a piece.
Are they really?
They're pretty expensive. They're not that much, but they're good hot dogs.
Say goodnight to Jeremy. Everybody say goodnight and happy Thanksgiving to Jeremy.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving, Jeremy.
All right. Good deal. Happy Thanksgiving, Jeremy.
Guys, I gotta go. I need some
Enjoy
mustard.
your Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Have some turkey and a bowl of mustard.
What's in the turkey that makes you tired? The tryptophans or something like that?
Tryptophan.
Yeah.
I heard that was a myth.
Is it a myth?
Heard that's a myth. Heard
it's actually full of mustard.
It's probably just being around all your family so much all day.
Well, I heard that. So the video I watched, or maybe it was an article some years ago, talked about the amount of calories that people typically consume during a Thanksgiving meal. And it's the pure amount of calories that you consume
that makes
you lethargic and tired. Because it's usually not only more than you consume in a typical day.
You guys don't have turkey, mashed potatoes, and gravy, and broccoli, and pumpkin pie, and ice cream, and marshmallows every day?
Yeah. Normal lunch, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's just one meal for Chris.
How do you think I maintain this,
Yeah. By eating turkey, broccoli, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie.
Some roast beef, some chicken, a pizza.
My mom makes some good stuff. My mom's a good cook, yeah. Shout out to the moms.
You got off the view. We lost the view. I did see this one other this one video that I definitely want. It's about liberal hypocrisy. I think we need to watch this right now.
Okay.
A liberal hypocrisy, and it's from the New York Times, believe it or not.
Wow. Are they reporting on themselves?
Well, liberal hypocrisy is fueling American inequality. Here's how. New York Times opinion. I'm going to go ahead and paste that and put it in the doc. And I think we should...
Rita,
Cinnabons are good
don't
on
forget to
Thanksgiving,
turn your scales back 15 pounds tonight.
That's pretty good.
Oh, that's pretty good, yeah. That's what we should do. That's a good idea, Russ. I bet you could sell that, like a scale that does it instead of a clock.
Just set
Russ,
the internal date.
It's in the doc, so why don't you pull that up? I think everybody needs to see this. Important stuff.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a little bit because I've talked about the time I spent in California and how Beverly Hills, when I first started going, you didn't see really any homeless people. Then a few years later, you start to see a few here and there. And the last time I went, it's just you can't go anywhere without seeing several homeless people. And you wonder, you're like, you've got these very wealthy liberals. Shouldn't they have it figured out already, right? Just give them some of your money, dude.
I was just watching a special yesterday about California.
Give them some of yours, bro.
Well, I don't want to redistribute my wealth.
How about you just give more? You got plenty. You make enough. You make enough. You have enough
out there to have housing.
You don't need to have that much. You don't need to have that much. Turn some over. We'll fix this thing in no time. Chop, wallet. You guys are going to have your liberal paradise.
Yeah, they want Elon Musk to do that. What was that, Liberty?
No, I had a conversation with one of my liberal friends one time, and she said, "Oh, I think the owners of big corporations, they should just give their money." And I was like, I was like, "Wait, how much do you make?" And then she said what she made, and I was like, "Oh, well, I make this much," and it was less than her. I'm like, you wanna,
sure. You wanna give some money?
Pay your fair share.
Well, there's always somebody who has less.
Tell you where to put it, And she said, "Well, I think it gets to a point where it's too much." And I said,
"Hey, that is correct. You have too much. Turn over the wallet.
Who's the decider?"
I am, and you make too much. Give me your wallet. Thank you. Fair share, bro.
Sure. Yeah, just the fair share.
Why don't you go ahead and play the clip, Russ?
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Russ.
There's a question I've had for a very long time, and it has to do with this map. This is a map of the 18 states in the U.S. where Democrats control the legislative and executive branches, or else have some veto-proof majority. majority
Is that
in
a
the
commercial in
legislature. Democrats in D.C. often blame the GOP for foiling their progressive vision.
When middle-class families see their taxes go up, they'll know Republicans are to blame.
But if you zoom into these 18 states, there's effectively no Republicans standing in the way. So my question is, what do Democrats actually do when they have all the power?
Okay.
They get in a
To answer this
circle.
question,
Never
I
mind.
teamed up with the Times editorial board writer Binya Applebaum.
Okay, you got my attention.
He's been thinking about and writing books about and reporting on this topic for decades.
I think, you know, Americans tend to view politics as a competition of us versus them, and they tend to think that if they would just get out of the way, then we can do the things that we want to do. There is no them standing in the way. There's just the we of Democrats and their supporters, and they get to decide what policy should look like in those states, and that is an opportunity for them to implement their vision.
For this story, I also delved into this giant document. It is the 2020 Democratic Party platform. If you want to really understand what Democrats say they want, what their vision is for America, it's found inside of this document. This document serves as a guide. As we zoom into these states to answer this question, what do Democrats really do when they have all the power?
Nearly 554,000 homeless people from the 25 wealthiest Americans shows they're paying little in income taxes compared to their fortunes, sometimes nothing at all.
We cannot, in good faith, blame the Republican Party when House Democrats have a majority.
There's still very intense segregation happening in all kinds of forms all over this country.
Okay, so let's start with California. To me, California is like the quintessential liberal state.
Land
From
of
the state
hypocrisy.
legislature to the whole executive branch to most of the big cities, Dems hold majority control. So what do they do with all this power?
Looking at California, you have to look at housing.
Okay, now wait, listen. When I hear the words housing policy, I tend to sort of doze off, but Binya insists that housing policy and what is happening in California is definitely worth looking at.
You cannot say that you are against inequality in America unless you are willing to have affordable housing built in your neighborhood.
And Democrats completely agree. Here in this document, the word housing is mentioned over 100 times.
The neighborhood where you're born has a huge influence.
As
on the
long
rest
as
of
it's
your
not
life.
near us.
Children who are born in
Right,
neighborhoods
exactly.
with degraded environmental conditions, with a lack of access to high quality public services, poor schools, poor public transit, are at a permanent disadvantage.
And they even say verbatim, housing in America should be stable, accessible, safe, healthy, energy efficient,
far
and above
away
all,
from me.
affordable.
Right.
Housing
Just not in my
is
neighborhood.
a human right.
Housing is a human right.
The rent is going through the roof. Housing is a human right.
How
Oh,
does
really?
California do
Let
when it
some
comes to
people
housing?
stay at my
You know where
place.
those signs are when you drive into a state, it says, "Welcome to California"? They might as well replace them with signs that say, "Keep out." Because in California, the cost of housing is so high that for many people, it's simply unaffordable. The state has simply, for the most part, stopped building housing. I mean, there are cranes, there's housing going up, but it has slowed down over time really, really sharply, and it is nowhere near sufficient to keep pace with California's population. And so what you have is not enough housing and too many people trying to get it, and the inevitable result is that prices have gone up and away.
The median price of a home in San Diego County is now a staggering $830,000.
Go!
All around California, there are cities full of
Sounds
people who say
affordable.
that they are progressive, they're liberals. They
Human
believe
rights.
in a more equal America, a more diverse America. They show up to the marches, they put in the lawn signs about everyone being equal, but at the same time, they're actively fighting to keep their neighborhoods looking like this.
They all just give up
Okay,
half
wait,
their
but
house,
that doesn't
right?
look so bad.
Yeah, sure.
It's just a bunch
Everybody
of
just give up half
houses
your
in a
house, that's all.
neighborhood, right? No.
Right.
It turns out that this is actually the result of specific policies, intentional policies that keeps these neighborhoods spread out and full of single-family homes.
You don't
as
say.
opposed
You
to
don't
higher
say.
density buildings like duplexes or apartment complexes. This is a real serious fight, and you can get a glimpse into it by looking at a zoning map. Yes, we're looking at a municipal zoning map of Palo Alto, California. Don't leave yet. This is really where it sinks in, so just stick around.
Oh,
So
if you
everything on
say
this map
so.
that is yellow is zoned for single-family homes, like this and this. One family can live here. But here in Palo Alto, there are a lot of new jobs. This is a desirable place to live for new opportunities. Over the past 8 years, the San Francisco area has added 676,000 jobs, but only 176,000 housing units. So a few years ago, the city council voted to change the zoning of one section of the city right here.
That's your
Specifically
neighborhood,
this
Liberty, isn't it?
2-acre plot of land. They wanted to change it from low density housing to higher density housing so that they could build a 60-unit affordable housing complex for elderly members of the community.
Turns
so they
out it's
changed
not
the
affordable.
zoning. Start building the 60-unit complex. No. The overwhelmingly liberal residents of
They'll just
Palo
vote
Alto
against it.
decided to hold a vote to overturn the decision, to revert it back to low-density, single-family housing.
You call
Back
it,
to yellow.
Chris.
And it passed, and the zoning was overturned. So now when you go to this plot of land, instead of an affordable housing complex for the elderly, what you're gonna see is this. A row of just a few houses, all of them massive and worth around $5 million each.
I think people
That's
aren't
insane.
living their values. You go to these meetings in these neighborhoods where they're talking about a new housing project, and it's always the same song, and it goes like this. I am very in favor of affordable housing. We need more of it in this community. However, I have some concerns about this project.
We have the hearts to do this, but we're doing it wrong, and we're dictating and harm onto the
Doing
neighborhood.
it wrong because
And
it's
then off we go
affecting
with the
me.
concerns,
You got a
and then
grid
nothing ever
chart, you
gets
turd.
This is happening
Yeah.
all
It's
over
only supposed to
California.
affect
and the
you,
result is
not
that these
me.
neighborhoods are so
Right.
expensive that they keep anyone out who isn't a part of this small group of super rich residents, many of whom
The
bought their
elite.
properties decades ago and who spend their time fighting vigorously to keep the value of their real estate assets super high.
If you want to keep Palo Alto the kind of neighborhood and community that we all treasure, low intensity, low density, safe for kids to walk to school, you've got to vote against Measure D.
There's an aspect of sort of greed here and of nervousness about actually sharing those opportunities.
Let's go to another liberal bastion up here in Washington state.
We all hate taxes. It's theft.
The Democratic Party talks about taxation, saying that our tax code has been, quote, rigged against the American people. Democrats all the time are decrying the fact that tax cuts are going to the wealthiest Americans.
It is time for a wealth tax in America.
Democrats believe in a progressive tax system where the rich pay a larger share of their income than the poor. This is like the most basic policy vision of like a progressive movement. It's front and center in Democrats' policy platform.
But if you go and look at Washington state, what you find is that in Washington state, if you look at the state and local taxes that people pay there, less affluent families pay a much larger share of their income in taxes than the wealthiest residents of Washington state. So people like Bill Gates
It
and
just
Jeff
convinced
Bezos,
the
two of
voters
the state's
otherwise,
most
though.
famous and wealthy residents,
Right.
are in
That's
this
it.
lovely
You're right.
situation of paying less in taxes as a share of their income than the poor people who live in that same state. And this is a fundamental inversion of the values that the Democratic Party professes. There is no state with a more regressive system of taxation than Washington.
It's almost like taxes are a bad
Regress-
thing.
That's just ridiculous, right? Redress it. Would you be in favor of a flat tax? Everybody pays 1%.
You know, I do find that interesting when
Yes.
they were talking about that years ago. It does have some appeal to it. I mean, nothing's perfect, but
10%.
it does almost seem.
Isn't that fair though?
It does
Everybody
seem
pays
more
the same
fair,
percentage.
yeah. Well, you know, the biggest thing too with the tax code right now is these wealthy, you know, individuals have access to tax attorneys and specialists and loopholes and things that.
It's
you know,
like
the
that
Or
by
they just
design, though,
avoid
right?
it
The
Right,
people
exactly.
who can truly take advantage of it are the ones
That's
who
right.
have the money to spend $1,000 an hour.
Yeah,
on
it would
these
be
folks
much
too.
more simplistic, and there's so much that goes into getting your taxes done and getting a CPA or whoever to do your taxes. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of that.
Just flat tax, and
Mm-hmm.
and people are like, oh well, the wealthy should pay more. It's like, well, they will literally pay more,
Sure.
because the percentage of what's being taxed is going to be more. That's how
You know,
it works.
Hey, if I was making $100 million a year, I guess I wouldn't mind contributing. I mean, I personally wouldn't mind contributing more.
Yeah.
And I made 80 million last year, and I contributed a fair amount, but you know what I mean. I paid my fair share, didn't I?
Paid your fair share.
Yeah, right.
Got out of it.
Yeah, it wasn't dollars though. It was.
Trump was like, I paid as little as possible.
Yeah, well, you can't blame them. You know.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah,
blame them.
that's
The
smart.
tax law is the way it is.
You have to be a moron to
Sure.
Like, I'm going to pay more in taxes. Now, you could
Right.
be a charitable person and donate more money to wherever
Right.
you see fit.
Yeah, but that's not
just
paying taxes.
give
That's
it to
donating. Though.
write a blank check to the government, pay more in taxes.
Exactly.
It's a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
But anyhow,
absolutely.
Well, I hope this guy hits on the rich should pay more and make them pay their fair share when
it's
you
just
know,
such a
they're the
such
ones
an
saying
example,
that
though,
they're
how
not
the
writing
government's
blank
so
checks.
inefficient at doing these things.
Right.
Right.
It's
When
another-
you put it in the hands of the government, you
Yeah.
trust them to take care of it. It doesn't work out that way. But go
Well,
ahead,
they're
press
pretty
play.
effective at
I'd rather
manipulating
not
it.
have taxes at all.
Yeah.
My money
Well.
should be my money. I earned it.
Washington State.
And I'm talking like the most regressive, meaning Texas, which is like the conservative bastion of like anti-taxes, is more progressive than Washington State, liberal Washington State. How is that real? Oh, and guess what? Other states on our map also are in the top 10 of most regressive tax regimes, like Nevada and Illinois.
There have been some changes, particularly in recent years, but the overall situation remains resistant to change.
So I am very concerned that at this time, which is a very poor time to disincent people from creating jobs in Washington State, that we're even considering it.
From that paycheck that you earn, more of that money is going to state government. And so the effect of that is basically to exacerbate inequality.
Okay, so rich liberals don't show up when it comes to housing or taxes. Another major theme in this policy document is education. And the wording in here I find quite interesting. The Democrats say, quote, "We must provide world-class education in every zip code to every child because education is a critical public good." They use this word zip code to represent the fact that in America, schools get their funding based on the real estate taxes of the houses within that school district. The more expensive the neighborhood, the more funding goes to the school. So over here in Illinois, which is like the quintessential liberal state, there's this one county that contains the city of Chicago. It's called Cook County. The residents here voted overwhelmingly for Democratic candidates in the presidential and senatorial elections last year. Often what would happen is that this would just be one big school district and that all the taxes from all the towns in this county would be put into one bucket and distributed equally throughout the county. But the residents of this very blue Democratic county have actually decided to divide themselves into more than 140
Like, wait, it's not fair
school
that we pay the
districts.
money
So
for
now you
other
have all these
people
tiny
and we
school
don't get the
districts like
benefit.
this
That's
one,
not
which are,
fair.
like,
Yeah, right.
gerrymandered
Suddenly
around the
not fair.
richest part of town. And so all of the taxes from these rich homeowners go into one little bucket and then only get distributed to the schools within this rich region of the county.
It can be on the same block that the town
Only
line
the people who
runs through
pay for the
middle of it.
benefit get the
And if you live on
benefit.
one side
Isn't
of
that
the line, you're
ridiculous?
consigned
Well,
to
if they weren't
inferior
saying how
education by virtue of the fact that you and your neighbors don't have as much money. And if you live on the other side, you're basically a member of a club that is sponsoring a private school, essentially, for the benefit of that small group of kids who are lucky enough to live in that affluent community. And the
Yeah,
result
press
is
pause,
that
guys.
poor communities have less money.
everybody has the right to a quality education as long as it's not at my kid's school and I don't have to pay for it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what their platform is, right?
It's almost like they're
It's
hypocrites. or
it's a
something.
human right that everybody has a high quality education as long as it's nowhere near my kids and it doesn't come out of my pocket, okay? Go ahead and move along with getting these rights straightened out for everybody else.
Didn't you make a California great again when you were out there, Mike? What happened?
Hey, I made California great again.
It would have to be great in the first place to be great again.
Great again.
Make California
great again.
How about
Great again.
let's just
Great
focus
again.
on making California mediocre first, okay? Can
That'd
we
be good. We
start
should
with
play that right now.
mediocre and then go up the ranks
I
to
do
great?
want to Rittenhouse. Speaking of Rittenhouse, I do want to play that one video, but let's finish this one because I like this
Okay.
one.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. It's
to
important.
educate their children, and rich communities have more money to educate their children. This is crazy. It means basically that the kids who have the greatest needs have the fewest resources.
The same thing is happening in wealthy, liberal Connecticut, where the inequality in education opportunities is shameful, with some schools having huge budgets for their libraries and facilities, and others in the same state having to use duct tape to keep wind and snow out of their windows. Like, this is a real thing.
We need your help in establishing guidelines procedures,
ridiculous.
and funding to address issues negatively impacting our students like extreme temperatures, mold, lead exposure, and poor water and air quality.
So yeah, Binya tells me that the states could change this. They could actually just collect all the real estate taxes and then equally distribute them. But if you look at some of our liberal strongholds, that is exactly what they are not doing.
It makes too much sense. Sense isn't allowed here. You're not allowed to use logic.
Something. In blue states, progress is being made, albeit slowly. For instance, a few weeks ago, California finally passed a law that gets rid of single-family zoning. It's a small step in the right direction.
What do you
And
think
in many
about single
cases,
family
blue states
getting rid of
provide
it?
more and better public services.
Like you buy a
and
farm, somebody can
historically
build a
have given
house,
better
apartment
chances
building
to
across the
low-income
street.
families to climb the economic ladder.
I think zoning's important, but yeah, there should be some changes over time, right? You know, modifications.
They're saying it's a good thing. I think that the issue is I disagree with what these people think the correct thing is.
Yeah.
And I also disagree with the people who are pushing a certain agenda and then as long as it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. You know what I think is going to happen, though, is like you look at these areas in California, when the market does go down, which it will inevitably, probably sooner than later, those property values are going to drop dramatically, and then they'll probably rezone them.
Yeah.
Because they'll come in and be able to buy, you know, it's almost like what you see in Philly. There's certain areas of the city where this process takes place, like Kensington right now. I mean, we could go over there and buy properties for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And eventually, if that area ever got cleaned up, just like other parts of the city over not far from the art museum where the properties are worth $1 million now. So that same thing could happen in California and probably will.
You're saying it could happen in Kensington?
It could, although I think right now we're in a different period of history, but that process has happened in Philly several times, and it is a political
right, yeah.
process.
So which parts of Philly has it happened in? Like, is Fishtown one of them? Or
Yeah, Fishtown's a good example that has one of the highest percent gains in the entire United States for property in the past 20 years. Like, I regret one of my friends was actually a listener of the show, made a comment earlier about my hat. If you're still out there, Mike, him and I, in our younger years, when we worked at Circuit City together, we almost went in on some properties in the city down that way, and we should have. They were $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for like a 3-story unit, and they're worth, you know, $800,000, 1.2, 1.5 million now. So that's why I'm still working on my time machine.
Well, my thing is, once the housing starts getting cheaper, knowing these people in California and their behavior, I think it would just result in the rich people buying up all the cheap properties so no poor people can move in. It's not unheard of for rich people to just buy more properties.
Well, you know, the thing is, when you have political connections, and a lot of this, I personally believe has happened here in Philly, you know, if you have an in on those areas and you know that they're going to come in and do a revitalization project, like Phoenixville is a good example. I used to live out in the suburbs, and years ago, downtown Phoenixville there was nothing there back in the mid 90s, early 90s. And then this revitalization came in and they put all these restaurants in, they gave tax breaks. But if you knew that was on the docket to happen, and then you bought up the properties that are above those restaurants that they now rent for several $1,000s a month because it's in a trendy little downtown area. But I think in California, we'll see a transition the other way. And big places like, I think we were talking about this, Mike, off the air. One of the big real estate outfits is slowly getting rid of inventory right now. Zillow, I think.
Zillow's made some mistakes. I was listening to this piece by, I forget the guy's name, but essentially Zillow had this bot going around and offering like $20,000 over asking price on all kinds of properties, and then the market started going down because nobody wanted it because they're like, oh, a Zillow bot's gonna get it, so I'm just not even gonna bother. And then they ended up with all these properties that they put, you know, $20,000 over, and they weren't even worth that much after the market, you know, it didn't crash or collapse, but it went down.
Mm-hmm.
But
Cool.
yeah, so they're slowly I guess, fixing those houses and getting rid of inventory that way, but I don't think they're going to get their money back. They've since discontinued whatever bot or algorithm that
maybe
was
that has something to
responsible
do
for
with it,
that.
yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
They probably set that computer on fire, I'm sure.
Probably.
Or they hired Antifa to do it. All right, should we continue?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Some of these foundational democratic values of housing equality, progressive taxation, and education equality, Democrats don't actually embody their values very well.
We're talking, once again, about a system that's been rigged.
Republicans today are to blame.
What we're talking about here is that blue states are the problem. Blue states are where the housing crisis is located. Blue states are where the disparities in education funding are the most dramatic. Blue states are the places where tens of thousands of homeless people are living on the streets. Blue states are the places where economic inequality is increasing most quickly in this country. This is not a problem of not doing well enough. It is a situation where the blue states are the problem.
Affluent liberals tend to be really good at showing up to the marches and talking about how they love equality. They're really good at putting signs in their lawns saying that all are welcome here. But by their actions, what they're actually saying is, yes, we believe in these ideals, just not in my backyard.
We are not living our values. People who live in blue states, people who profess liberal values, you need to look in the mirror and need to understand that they are not taking the actions that are consistent with those values, not just incidentally, not just in small areas, but that some of the most important policy choices. We are denying people the opportunity to prosper and to thrive and to build better lives, and it is happening in places where Democrats control the levers of policy.
Who was surprised? Raise your hand.
They're pretty good at deflecting it and controlling the narrative, though. They're very good at that. And it happens on both sides. But
DG says, which circuit city? What time frame?
Oh, great question, DG. It was back in
1931.
From 91. Yeah, right.
Circuit City, big lots.
The integrated circuit chip when it was invented. 91 to 97, I worked at the Circuit City and the Gateway Shopping Center in Wayne.
Huh. I always thought it was in Philly for some reason.
Yeah, it was in the suburbs. It was a great place. I enjoyed it.
A lot of people think that
where did
because my name is
Petroni live
Billy
at that
Chris.
time?
He was in that area, but I forget exactly where he was. But he moved around a few times.
Was he in Philly proper, or?
I think he was in the suburbs, just outside of Philly there. Maybe in like Manayunk or Conshohocken or something. I think I don't remember for sure, but yeah. Yeah, those were some good days, yeah. It was a good place to work back then, and then, of course, they ruined the place, and they went out of business. I saw the writing on the wall, so I headed out. It was all commission. I worked on commission, 100% commission.
Wow.
You were predicting things then, Philly Chris.
I suppose.
This is not my opinion.
Just saw the writing on the wall, you know?
You have people like in this room, this speaker room. Like I had a separate speaker room. And Chris is there telling them about all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes of the deep state. He's like, this is not my opinion. These are facts. And he's like, dude, I just want some speakers, please.
That's right. That's right.
I don't feel like hearing the truth there. I'm not interested in the truth, sir. I'm interested in speakers, and that's it.
Well, it was it was a good place to work. It was fun. Good time back then. Good
and now all you have is Walmart.
Did you have something?
What's that?
I think Liberty.
Oh, not about this. Something else. I was thinking.
What was it?
I was just curious, since it's the holiday season coming up. I was curious if anybody out there wanted to share. Do you guys talk politics at the dinner table, or do you stay away from it? You know, with everything you have, because you know maybe you'd have some family who doesn't disagree, so you kind of just avoid the topic. Just curious. Just thought I'd put it out there.
I think at this point, people know better than talk politics at the table, because it just doesn't end well. Unless everybody is actually in agreement with stuff, then it's like, why bother? It's just an echo chamber.
I know somebody.
Liberty, is it you who were saying that, just talk politics right away? That way you save money on Christmas presents. You don't have to.
Right.
I saw somebody who Follow me for
That
more
makes sense.
Christmas tips. Yeah, but I don't know. It's like an old I guess adage, right? That you're not supposed to talk politics. But I'm just curious, in this day and age, do people talk politics or do they not? If you guys want to answer that, I love asking my corny questions. Okay.
That's a good question. I'm looking at the comments. I see all your comments, DG. Thank you. Love to talk to you about this stuff. Kensington too. We'll have to catch up.
He just goes right for it. I think that people in DG's life know where she stands, and they're just not coming over, or they're coming over based on that. Well, let's see if I'm right. What about you, Philly Chris? Do you talk politics at family functions or no?
You know, here's the thing about it, and this is how I've been kind of dealing with it lately, I suppose, is I'm willing to talk about it with anybody, but I have found that when I get into discussions with folks who may not see things the way I do and have their own opinion, whatever,
they really don't want to talk about it.
They don't. They end up getting really upset. And I've had a few very close friends who have gotten very upset, and I'm just like, I'm just
Didn't
trying
you
to share.
You guys like going to sleep and fighting?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was a rough night. And at one point, my friend was like, almost like, I don't ever want to talk to you. And I'm like, how could you say that? I would never say that to you. Like, we should be able to have this conversation. So I don't really bring it up now unless other people do. And then I'm pretty cautious, I guess, in the way I present my thoughts and opinions and what I
did all that kind of go out the window a year and a half ago when you joined the program?
Kind of. But, I guess...
I'm not exactly able to be politically androgynous at the Thanksgiving table anymore.
Although I do keep it kind of separate for that reason. I mean, I'll talk to anybody about it, and I think it's important to talk about. But I think here's a problem though: is they've brainwashed people into this place where they can't have a reasonable conversation anymore without hate and anger getting.
We're getting some comments. Yeah, that makes sense, Philly Chris.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I also feel like I have an obligation. Somebody said something a few months ago. I was listening to them, and they were like, you know what? I'm just not going to lie to my children. And that's how I feel. I have very strong beliefs about certain things, and I'm being more open about it now. I feel like the show, I'm very thankful to be a small part of the show here with you guys and being able to talk about this stuff and get the word out and also have some fun and laughs at the same time. But this is pretty serious what's going on. We're in big trouble,
That's why I asked my lighthearted, corny questions.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Wait, we're getting the answers. So let's look at the answers. I love it. Okay. SM Durso says, they all know I'm a gun owner. So
very good.
They know what to do and not to talk about. DG says, in my house, talk about what I like or don't come. I do try to avoid it with kids around. They need a break from stress. That is very true. And Rita says, no politics or the vaccine. Unfortunately, my family members are divided with these topics. I don't like it. I don't like to be lectured. I agree. We all do really. I don't do it on Sundays if I'm really putting in effort. So DG puts in that extra effort on Sundays. Very cool.
Very good friend of mine basically got uninvited from Thanksgiving with her family. Wow.
That's crazy. See, this is what they want, too, really. The elites and the globalists and deep state, whatever you want to call them. That's what they want. They want the division. And they're succeeding, I think, unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it hits the family. It hits in the family.
Well, when we're divided like we are now, it's so much easier to manipulate the country and all the things that are happening right now. And I predict, if I can sort of throw a prediction out on the show again, I mean, between what's going on with the dollar, the real estate market, if they close this other pipeline they're talking about closing that directly impacts the Northeast, supply chain for Christmas, the stock market's going to collapse like soon, like probably right after the holidays, because the majority of companies, like when I worked at Circuit City, I made like 40% of my income around the holiday season, just like most big companies. And all projections are going to be off. They don't even have products to sell. So if you want to destroy the economy, you do everything that they're doing right now. I mean, it's almost impossible for that not to happen at this point. I hope
absolutely.
I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid I'm right.
Multiple stores. Literally, it hit me yesterday. I was going to do my basic tasks for the day, and there were signs on 3 of the places I had to go that said, this is closed, that's closed.
Yeah.
Due to staffing shortage,
Right.
wait times, hold times. I couldn't get anything done. I'm not even kidding. I tried to make phone calls. I tried to go things, and the lines were so long, and there was no staff. And I was like, what the heck's going on?
Right. I was online for like 20 minutes the other day.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There's also there's going to be an Amazon global strike, where I guess the Amazon workers just don't want to work. They're not being provided enough bottles to pee in, apparently.
Yeah, that was
because
that was happening
that's
before
something they have to
You're
do
right.
because they're expected to deliver so many packages. They don't have time to stop to use the restroom or even take a break at that point. And I don't blame them for not wanting to work on Black Friday or Thanksgiving or
Hey, Russ doesn't want to work on any day for that matter.
Yeah, I had some pretty crummy jobs as a kid. I had a paper route. I worked in restaurants and barely made anything. But now too, they've convinced the younger generation that they're should
Entitled.
be making and
Yeah.
a little bit more entitled. I mean, there's I think there should be some sort of fair wage.
$20 an hour is a human right.
I think there is something to be said where the minimum wage has stayed, and I get it that people aren't meant to survive on minimum wage. It's supposed to be hey, you're in high school, flip burgers for a while, but that hasn't gone up for quite a few years, and prices have continued to go up. So I can understand why people would expect to be paid a little bit more, because things cost more, and when things cost more but you're not getting paid more, then you're just losing money at that point, more than you normally would. If your grocery bill goes from $350 to $450 and nobody's making up that difference for you, it just costs more.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, Russ. And with inflation, I didn't mention that, but we all know what's going on.
They also want the government to step in, and then it means that everybody's going to pay more, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
It's not. They say, "Oh well, the government will pay it."
Oh, you're being paid more
the
now.
Government
Well,
doesn't have money to pay. It comes from the taxpayers.
Yeah, and this new bill, with the, they're
like,
basically.
it's all free. So you go, what do you mean free?
Right.
Nothing's free.
Yeah, it's already paid for, Mike. It's already paid for. Biden said it's already paid
for.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah, but then there's also the other half of that vicious cycle where, you're being paid more. Well, then I guess I can raise my prices because you got more money to spend.
Well, of course that.
Did you see they're selling?
That's what always happens, though, because they have to pay their workers more, right?
Well, not only that,
they have to pay their workers more.
Too.
They got to charge more for their product, or their service, or whatever it is.
Well, yeah.
And unfortunately, it's sort of like the situation where
it's a catch-22.
It is, because they say, well, we're not going to work for less than this, and they say, well, we can't pay you less than this. Fine, then I'm just going to go home. And the government's not going to let me starve, right? They're going to pay, and you're going to end up paying anyway. So pay me now or pay me later is ultimately what it comes down to.
Right.
Reminds me of a situation when we were younger. I was in college, and brother's there and spending a week with me. And it's like, all right, at the beginning of the week, I say, all right, I got some money for you for the week. Here's your money for the week. You can spend it however you like, but it's got to last you for your food the whole week. All right.
Right.
Because that's cool.
Budget,
well, day one, he goes to the casino and the money's gone. I had my money for the week. He had his money for the week, and his money's gone. And he's like, well, you're not going to let me starve, right? You're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I did the responsible thing and didn't spend all my money at the damn casino. And now over the course of the next week, I got to continue to pay anyhow. You got me. You
Right.
you got me. And that's what I feel like with these liberals.
Yeah. No, Dan Crenshaw posted something, I think it was yesterday. It says, remember last year when Republicans wanted to buy 77 million barrels into the strategic reserve at dirt cheap prices? Remember when the Democratic Congress refused? Taxpayer profit from selling this oil today would be $3 billion.
Pepperidge Farm, remember?
Big deal.
Yeah, and on top of that, right now, Biden is selling off our critical reserves.
Big deal. They just
other
print
countries.
$3 billion, Chris.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true.
$3 billion. What do you mean?
Right. It's just $3 billion. It's free. It's already paid for. Yeah.
$3 billion. Just print more.
All by design, right?
Don't need their stupid oil
No.
reserve money. We don't need that. Profit.
Just get a
What's
Tesla.
profit?
Well, in a few
Print
years,
more money. It's free.
When gas cars are illegal in a few years, and you're forced to.
Well, I don't know if
they
they'd
can
be
use your
illegal.
helicopter, Russ. Maybe
That's
You
the
still
other
have
thing,
that?
though, right? Because they know that people aren't going to shift in droves to
Thank you, SM Durst.
electric unless it becomes more financially feasible.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of forcing that industry to be more competitive, it's going to be the opposite. This is going to make it so wildly expensive to own a gas vehicle.
Well, they're also, and I believe GM, Ford, and a few of the overseas like Nissan, I believe Chevys are made in Taiwan. All those companies have jumped on board to, by I think it's like 2030 or 2035, they're just not going to have gas powered vehicles anymore.
Right.
They're not going to be
They're headed that way.
they're not going to be making them. So it
How
doesn't
much
matter.
oil's left?
It doesn't matter if it.
How much oil do we have left, Chris?
I don't know.
There's plenty of oil.
What do you say?
There's
What do you mean
plenty
by
of oil.
plenty?
At some point, you just
Like
won't
in
be
the,
able
in
to
the
get
earth,
a
you mean?
gas-powered vehicle.
There's a lot of it. I know certain areas it's harder to get to and more costly, but there's also some newly found and discovered oil reserves that wouldn't be that difficult to get to if certain regulatory issues were changed.
Worldometer
And
says
that's what
42 years.
42 years.
Yeah, somebody went to an EV.
Yeah.
To EV that I did not expect the other day, and I forgot who it was.
I mean, they're nice cars. Don't get me wrong. I love the Tesla.
Yeah.
I've
They're
driven.
Mustang. Isn't there electric
There's a really
Mustang?
cool electric Mustang, and electric is way better in so many ways. But I've mentioned this on the show before, and I've talked to you a little bit off the air. I don't want to get into it too much right now, but I have a family member who was involved in inventing things and actually worked on electric vehicles back in the 60s. And they were highly advanced, and they were suppressed, if you will, because they didn't want to interfere with the oil market. That's happened to a lot of inventions over the years. So really,
Like that one that
we are
runs
where
on
we
water.
are now because of suppression of technology. And now they're same people who suppressed that technology because they wanted to make money on oil all these decades are now, crying wolf, if you will, and saying, environmental this and global this and the temperature change. So it's all a big game to them. It's a big chess game.
Now, and there was a Tesla outage the other day. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't catch that with
Yeah.
vehicles or something.
Yeah, some kind of outage on their
Oh no, I
software.
didn't even see that.
and-
Really? Oh,
so I'm
okay.
just imagining a world where all the cars go out.
Well, these things are pretty robust, but they have those self-driving modes. And if somebody were to hack that, or we talk about the Neuralink getting hacked, and I mean, we're becoming completely dependent on technology. Look, our bank accounts are no longer safe.
It was an outage leaves Tesla drivers unable to unlock or start their vehicles.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Can you
great.
imagine?
I have a family member who has one. I'll have to ask.
That sounds a lot like some DRM that's going on with some games right now, where even for like the single player stuff, Mike, what did you do? Even for some of the single player stuff, oh jeez, how do I fix this? Even
You see
for
the
some
NRA got hacked. Did you guys see that?
No. Even for some of the single player stuff, you have to always be online. There's something built within called DRM, Digital Rights Management, where you have to be online, and it's just constantly pinging the server. And I think that might be what Tesla has going on, where their thing went down, and it's like, well, I can't verify that it's you, so enter vehicle.
That's interesting.
In
Could be.
Soviet Russia, vehicle enter you.
Yes.
Where did Mike go?
I don't know, but he messed up the screen.
I think he's ending the show. Yeah. Oh, it's a good show though.
Oh, there
Happy
we go.
Thanksgiving. Happy
well,
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Billy Chris show, bro.
His initials
Chris
are
show.
back.
Yeah. Billy Chris time.
Mike, where's your camera?
He disappeared on us.
Yeah. Well, his initials are there.
You should probably watch The View now.
Oh, that's creepy. That's the wrong screen. Well,
All right.
All right.
Am I back?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're not. Oh, there you go.
Back?
All right, so Randy
Welcome
says,
back.
yeah, Biden is pulling 50 million barrels from strategic reserves. Does anybody else realize that oil consumption in the U.S. is 19 million barrels daily? So basically, Biden is pulling 2.6 days worth. Great. Oh, man.
That's not that much.
Oh, why don't you, Russ? Why don't you show that flashback video and then we'll say goodbye.
Oh, you actually plan to use that, eh?
Go ahead. Just click it.
Can I even
No, play it
find
out. Play it live.
I don't even know where my PowerPoint went. Do I just minimize this?
Or you can do it from the dock if you want.
Yeah, I guess I can grab it from the dock. I had it set, though. Where is it at? Clip 5. Where's my mouse? I can't even see it.
Michael Giaramita, a Second Amendment attorney and founder of Giaramita Law. And, Michael, we also heard in the president's speech, and I'm reading from it directly, saying, quote, if we don't win, your Second Amendment doesn't have a chance. I can tell you that. I have totally protected it. That was from a speech last night. What do you make of the president's speech when it comes to calling out the violence and also defending Americans' rights to bear arms?
Thanks, Emma. It's not only about the ownership and possession of firearms, which is certainly at stake in this upcoming election, but it comes down to the very ability to protect yourself, to defend yourself, and to defend your loved ones. The McCloskeys also came out at the RNC and warned America of what we're going to see if President Trump isn't reelected. And people thought the McCloskeys situation was bad. Now we see Rittenhouse over in Kenosha. Here's a guy who tried everything he could to flee. He's got people throwing things at him, people approaching him. Somebody tries to reach for his firearm, grab it from him. He defends himself. He runs away again. He falls to the floor. They've got somebody who comes down, a mob of people. Somebody hits him in the head with a skateboard and tries to grab his firearm. He defends himself. Another man with a firearm approaches him and tries to grab his firearm. He shoots him in the arm. And what are the headlines in the media? They're absolutely disgusting. They're that some gunmen came out and killed a couple of protesters, as if they were standing there with signs in the street peacefully, and this guy murdered them in cold blood. Yeah. People think it's bad right now with President Trump in office. Could you imagine what the alternative will be, what the political climate will be if we've got a Biden and Harris presidency?
Yeah, and in regards to what you're talking about in Kenosha, that shooting, tragically, it's under investigation at this point, and for any journalist to already go out and make assumptions as to what exactly played out without that formal investigation, those results, it's just inappropriate.
Here's what I can tell you. I've read the court documents, and this is based on the evidence they're using to charge this guy with homicide. So I didn't mention anything that's not in court documents or purportedly to be on video.
Right. Yeah, and we know a lot of.
So isn't it interesting that this is like 2 days after this happened, or a few days after this happened, and I knew more about the case just by reading the court documents that are publicly available than 99% of the mainstream media knows about the case today, after all that happened.
Right.
Jeez.
They didn't care to learn any more about it, or they did learn more about it and are just still lying about it. Yeah, they're just lying about it. So they're either really, really stupid or they're really, really evil. There's really no third option.
You can take that and literally we just played it today. It's relevant today, and it's relevant today.
Right.
That's crazy.
That's a good point.
And I think they're stupid.
I'm not some kind of magician or anything like that. I'm not some kind of magical genius. I just read the court documents, and that was available at that time. It just shows how these people don't care about the truth. They're either too stupid to know the truth and too stupid to remember the truth, or they're so evil that they don't care to learn the truth. And there's really no third option, unfortunately. What do you think for the final thing? We hope that everybody has a good Thanksgiving. I'll go around the table and ask everybody what they're thankful for. But before we do, I got one final political question for everybody who's still with us. Looks like there are still quite a few people in the chat. Do you think that the mainstream media is A, stupid, or B, evil? Do you think they're that stupid or they're that evil? Because there's no third option. They're either stupid or evil. in the way they've reported this case.
What about
Chris?
filthy?
What do you think it is?
I think it's evil more than stupid, unfortunately, because I think a lot of what they're doing, the majority of it at this point is by design, like I've said on the show. So I'll go with evil.
What are you laughing at? DG's comment?
Yeah.
No, Chris.
DG says I look like a 12-year-old Ashton Kutcher in that video. Well, now I'm a 13-year-old Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, you're better looking than him.
Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy.
Liberty, what do you think? Stupid or evil?
I think we just live in an evil, like a fallen world, right? So but there's a lot of just really naive people who just they turn the other way. They don't want to see the facts.
You're not gonna say, I'm not sure which one.
It's not. I mean, I think there's forces.
Are they stupid or are they
I think there's forces of evil, but I'm not going to go ahead and say that.
Are they stupid or are they evil?
Both.
I can't answer that. I don't know their heart, but I do know that they are
If you had
dividing.
a guess, if you had to take an educated guess, are they stupid or are they evil? I've seen you make many educated guesses over the years, Liberty. We've had many discussions about these sorts of things. You're usually not very shy to take a little bit of a leap on things. You're not exactly somebody who's got to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, this is the thing is that I need 50. I think it's 50-50.
So
basically, there's no answer.
Do I think there's a mad Mr. Burns sitting behind his desk and saying, "Ha ha ha"? Let's fool these people on. Let's fool these people. But I do think that they are turning a blind eye, and they.
You don't think that there is a Mr. Burns?
I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're sitting there saying, "Let's fool these people." I think that they, being from New Jersey,
he's got really baggy eyes.
Got it.
Listen,
he's got really baggy. His eyes are really.
No. We gotta find that video. I gotta show you that video where you have all these newscasters from different parts of the country on different stations reading the same exact thing off of the teleprompter. You've seen that, right, Liberty?
Are not saved people, and I think that they don't. I think it's a little bit of naive, and I think that we're all a part of this fallen world, so we all fall short. Are they doing it on purpose?
I feel like this is the scene in Raging Bull where De Niro is accusing Pesci of sleeping with his wife, and Pesci's like, "I'm not answering that question. It's a stupid question."
No, I'm usually okay. DG said Liberty's like my daughter Switzerland. I'm usually not. Yeah. I'm actually very.
I think you're giving them a little too much credit though, because they're not operating by the same rules.
Hey, quit being Swiss, would you?
I'm from New Jersey, and I literally know people.
Is that why you're dodging the question?
No idea. They have.
Eric
no
says
idea about
evil,
fire.
no journalism. They're evil. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for taking a position.
Moving on.
Anybody else? Stupid or evil? Are they stupid or are they evil?
I'm going to say both.
The mainstream media and the way they reported this Rittenhouse case as a white supremacist who crossed state lines and murdered innocent people in cold blood for peacefully protesting. Are they stupid or are they evil?
I think there's both going on, but I don't think it's the same reason that.
No.
It's not for the same.
Liberty's twin brother.
It's not for the same reason Liberty gave. Okay, I do believe that there is a Mr. Burns at the head of all this, going excellent as we're all divided against each other, fighting over these things that just have no bearing on our day-to-day lives as it is. It's. I think that there's evil in the higher ups, and I think the lower downs are definitely at least brainwashed to some degree, and they believe it to some degree. So there's a vast amount of evil, there's a vast amount of ignorance, there's a vast amount of stupidity going on.
I'm gonna go ahead and give them enough credit to say they can't possibly be that stupid. So I'm going to give them a little bit of credit on that end. I'm going to say I don't believe you are that stupid, because you'd have to be really, really stupid.
I think it's more malice. I think it's more malice because, like you said, you
evil.
knew more.
Malice is evil.
You knew more in just reading the documents that were publicly available than the worthless mainstream media did. The worthless, disgusting, filthy mainstream media. Okay, and
let's look up some synonyms for
malice. They want to believe it. They want to believe it,
Yeah, well,
and
they're not feeling with the.
They're naive. I have literally seen people who are terrified of firearms.
Exactly.
Terrified. They don't
There's
know
people
one
who
fact.
just don't know any better.
They don't know one fact, and then they go on, and then they act like they know the facts.
One
And
of the
that is
synonyms
not
for malice
evil,
is
it's
one of the synonyms for
naive.
malice is
evil.
Begins with an E. Begins with an E.
Malice,
Eventual.
I just asked, is it stupid or? Chris, please guess this.
Oh, I know what it is. Evil.
Oh, say it out
waiting.
loud.
I thought you were talking to Russ. Evil.
Evil. That's
Ladies
right.
and gentlemen, the synonym for evil is malice. Yeah.
So Russ, you can't say it's not malice; it's evil.
DG said evil like 100 times, so she.
Evil.
I think we're.
It's not malice; it's evil. That's like saying, I don't know.
You don't know what
That's not splendid. It's wonderful.
I think we haven't even seen the beginning of how evil it's going to get.
DG says evil. DG agrees. Malice is evil.
Wait, hang on. Hang on.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
I think it's going to. I don't think we've even.
I got
seen-
one. I got one.
We need to play
I don't think we've even seen the beginning of how evil it's going to get too.
You ready? I got your answer right here.
Yeah.
Evil?
Yeah.
Evil.
With a dramatic skull and crossbones.
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess it could. You could say it's forces of evil, like that are causing these.
Well, it's
horrible things
definitely
to
not
happen.
forces of neutrality or good.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Are they stupid or are they evil?
Stevel.
Stupid or evil?
The two choices are stupid or evil.
There's no in between,
Yeah.
apparently.
Stupid or evil.
This is how
Please-
Mike cross-examines people.
Please
There's
follow
no
Mike's instructions.
Other.
Stevel. How's that?
Yes,
Yesn't.
possibly be that stupid.
Mike,
So
this
I'm
is
gonna go with evil.
this is
Okay, DJ.
no, it's a
DG
compliment.
wins the award. She answered you many times.
Would you rather be stupid or evil?
This is Sammy the Socialist.
Stupid.
I'm very hurt by either category. I would like to stay out of either category.
Sammy, don't you
And
believe that evil is
I'm
subjective?
smarter than
I
all
think
of you.
Sammy's more stupid than evil.
Well, you're just a white supremacist and a bad gun person. And Kyle Rittenhouse killed everybody. And,
I did not
And,
have evil relations with the media.
His mother took him there to kill everyone across state lines because he's bad. He's the evil one.
Sammy and Clinton have appeared.
Oh yeah, we need Clinton. Oh yeah, did you tell people Clinton's going to be on the show next
I'm
week?
not entirely sure who you're talking about. I never met anybody named Clinton in my life. I swear to you, I'm not lying.
Bill, what do you plan on doing on Thanksgiving?
I can't tell you. I'll end up in jail. Hillary killed me. Hillary will suicide me.
Certainly.
I
you
sure am
and
scared of the
Hillary-
Clintons.
Certainly, you and Hillary have some kind of tradition, right? Maybe make a turkey with some stuffing together.
What difference does it make?
And maybe you guys go around the table and tell everybody what you're thankful for. What are you thankful for, Bill?
I'm thankful I don't have to sleep with Hillary.
Really?
With or next to. It's terrible.
Where do you sleep? Where do you sleep, Bill?
Well, where does Hillary sleep is what I want to know.
Yeah, right.
The doghouse where she belongs.
And how about you, Bill? Where do you sleep?
I sleep in our mansion. My mansion. With
Your
all
mansion.
the interns I can get.
So is it less of a problem now that you're no longer in the Oval Office?
It's less of a problem because I escaped that island that Am I allowed to say this on YouTube?
What happened? I thought that you had nothing to do with that guy. You said you never been on the plane.
I've never been on any plane. I swear.
How about the submarine? What was the submarine like?
It was yellow.
John Paul and Ringo on there.
Right.
DG
I don't
said
know what you're
Clinton is
talking
alive. Crap, I have to add him to my Christmas card list.
What? You guys need a
You
beer.
should invite him to the cigar episode.
Yeah, that's right. We should do a cigar episode.
Okay,
and have
Howard
Phil
Stern,
on.
get off the show, Howard Stern.
Well,
I don't know
we were
Howard
smoking
Stern.
cigars last week.
Hey, that was a good episode. We gotta do that more often.
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here,
excuse me,
otherwise Hillary's
Mr.
gonna kill me. Bye.
Maybe,
we'll he'll be coming back next week.
I never
we'll
told
be
anybody
together
to lie.
Saturday. We
Not
should
a
do a little
single
live.
time.
Drew says
Live
you guys
broadcast.
need a beer.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Got to talk to you about that.
I need some
Oh,
time.
okay.
Let's call it a night. What are you thankful for, Chris? What are you thankful for?
Well,
Randy said he's thankful. Says, I'm absolutely thankful for my family and health, but I'm also thankful for the knowledge that Mike G passes on in his seminars. Everyone who attends them learns a wealth of information every time. Thank you, Randy. That's very, very kind of you. It's my pleasure. I'm thankful for everybody who shows up. Go ahead, Chris.
well, I'm thankful for happy and healthy family and friends and all of our listeners and hopefully, positive future here. And we'll see what happens. Happy Thanksgiving. Peace and love.
What about you, Mr. Clinton? What are you thankful for?
I'm not here.
Are you thankful that you're flying under the radar these days?
I told you I've never been on a plane.
How about Russ? Is Russ around?
Yeah, I'm thankful that my decision to not be vaccinated hasn't torn me from my family.
That's
that was a very real threat at one point.
That's unfortunate.
But
Really?
it was more of an argument threat. I didn't get COVID or anything. I haven't had COVID this entire time. Amazingly.
Interesting article in circulation, the medical journal Circulation this month regarding that, but we won't get into that now.
Yeah, but
DG says she's thankful for freedom. What about you, Liberty? What are you thankful for?
Well, first, I was just going to say thankful for God, for Jesus, and because we're living in a crazy world. And then DG made me think even further, which is I'm glad to live in America, for real. I always look at the American flags that we can worship freely and who we want, because some people have really, really died, in certain countries to protect that, right? Like they've been literally given choices. So being a Christian in America, we have it very easy.
Yeah, we think you got it tough sometimes, right? It's like, nobody likes us.
You put yourself in
They make
perspective
fun of us.
But
Yeah,
the
think of
other
people
thing
right
is
now,
everybody loves
we're worried
Raymond.
about Turkey, Thanksgiving, things like that. And there's people right now who are fighting for their life in Afghanistan and don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So
Yeah, there's still Americans left behind over there.
Rita says she has a very long list of things to be thankful for. Well, that's good.
I think we all do. It's hard to choose even a top 3.
I am thankful for all of our listeners. I'm thankful for Susan. And I'm thankful for the legacy of Al Locke here at the station. And first and foremost, thankful for Jesus. I know that we tend to Christmas and Easter, but you can tie that in here, right? Thankful for that. And for family and good friends. A lot to be thankful for.
Yeah. I think if it weren't for Jesus, we'd all be in a lot of hot water right now.
Yeah.
Or perhaps many years ago. It depends.
DG says, pray for kids injured in that murder by criminal in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Crazy.
Total bonkers. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that next week.
Yep.
But everybody have a very safe, happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Pray for everybody. Stay blessed. That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Phil Duffy. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.
Were you on this past one, Mike? On the We the People?
No. Should I cut it again?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People. Wow. One more time.
Do it live.
That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney and Professor Phil Duffy. I'll be sitting this one out, folks. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.